We are joined by none other than Lex Luger, the total package. Thanks for being here today.
Glad to be here, man.
Thank you. I guess my first question, before we get into the wrestling aspect, were you a big college football fan before you got into football?
I did the, not to age myself, but when I was in high school, grew up, it was a three-sport thing, You did the football,
Right.
basketball, and I ran track in spring, and you did everything, And I actually, in high school, my best sport was actually basketball, but I was a white guy who could jump.
Right. So you're
Had some
weight.
ups. So I went to 5-star basketball camp and did the whole 9 hours of that. My son's just wanted to go to school to Mercer down on Georgia on Division 1A scholarship. He's 6'9". He's a real good basketball player. So basketball's probably my favorite sport.
Wow.
But I was better suited physically for football, obviously.
Right.
So I was the kind of guy who had good ups. In my area where I grew up, I'm about 6'4", 6'5". I could play, like power forward. Cause I played football too, but I played 1A. I would have had to be a guard, and obviously I was lazy and did all three sports. Not lazy, but I'm saying I didn't work on my ball handling skills where I would have had to be a top Division 1A guard.
Right.
It would have been I don't know if I could have made a transition, but it would have been a tougher transition just playing football. So
did you ever play pro at all or no?
I played pro for 7 years.
Right.
Yeah. I left Miami early with some behavior problems,
Right.
which was pretty difficult to do back then.
A lot of fights.
Sunshine U. No, I just was college kid, just
Partier.
yeah, partier and got myself in a lot of trouble. And imagine getting myself kicked out of Miami. And if you can believe that,
Hard to
then
do.
especially. That's going soon. But it wasn't anything like major, like felony stuff. It was just I like kind of Chinese water torture, kind of like nickel and dime to death.
Right.
Sort of like uncle, and I had been successful enough on the field, however, to garner some attention from the back then, and the CFL, Canadian Football Union, had rules where your class had to graduate. The NFL, that was back then, was rock solid. I mean, your class had to graduate before you could go pro. So until you were like 21 years old, you could not play pro.
Not like
in the
now.
NFL. Yeah. It's been challenged, and
Right.
and it's being challenged more so with Claret and them now. Still not 100%, but back then, I mean, it was 4 years, and you could not play in the NFL.
Right.
Who were some of your teammates at Miami? Like any?
Oh,
Of the
man,
pros.
Jim Kelly and
Okay.
those
Right.
guys. Not to age myself again, but But
Were you in the game of Boston College of Flutie? Was that it?
No, I wasn't in that
No.
game. No. I was spared that one.
Now
Well, I'm still a big U of M fan.
Right.
I had a lot of fun.
Right.
I had too much fun.
Right.
It's the reason I
Right.
I didn't finish out there. But I was had gotten a lot of interest from the NFL scouts, and the CFL showed a lot of interest in the Canadian Football League, and they didn't have the rule where your class had to graduate. So I went up there not knowing that there was only 15 Americans per team, mostly skill position. So I went up there as a lineman, and I was like, I'm looking around, seeing like there's like 15 other linemen. I'm like, oh, I think they keep 7 or 8 guys, on the line. I think I can, maybe pull this off. And I didn't realize that the 7 or 8 guys up there any good were all Americans. There were only like 1 or 2 spots for Americans.
Right.
So I was like, I was real fortunate that the coach that I worked with there. Jim Erkenbeck,
What team?
Montreal Alouettes.
Okay.
Great city.
Now, how did you actually make the transition into pro wrestling? Were you a wrestling fan growing up, or?
You know what? It's weird. I didn't watch it at all.
Wow.
I mean that in a bad way or a denigrating way at all towards wrestling. I just didn't grow up in a family or an environment where we watch wrestling. My dad was went to college on a piano concert scholarship. My mom was like a Mensa academic scholarship, and my family was totally anti-sport. I was like the black sheep that I wouldn't want to do any sports.
Right.
I thought that would never amount to anything. They're like, you want to do what? Play football? My dad wouldn't even sign my permission slip. I forged my football in high school. I forged my dad's product. I didn't say this, but I forged my dad's signature. Play football in high school. He didn't know I was playing.
That's great.
And my dad never went to one of my games. He had no interest in sports, and that's not I'm a bad dad. Just wasn't his thing.
Right.
And he thought it was a dead end street being involved in athletics and sports. He thought education, music, and art, and that kind of thing was the way to go. So I was definitely the. I have a brother and sister, but I was the only one who was involved in sports at all.
Wow.
So,
now, what made you make the transition from football to wrestling? Who approached you, or is this something that you came up with?
I watched my last year in football. I played in USFL, and it was in Memphis, which was a huge wrestling town.
Right.
That was my first exposure really to wrestling.
The Jarrett's
Where
product.
people were like nuts about it. The
Right.
whole Lawler thing, and I was like, wow, these people are really into this. And at the same time, they had that first huge at the Detroit Silverdome, the Hogan Andre the Giant match.
Right. WrestleMania
WrestleMania
3.
I was like, man, they sold that place out. I was like, there must be something to this, And I always worked real hard in the weights, and was kind of they always called me the cyborg and the genetic freak kind of thing. Everybody always teased me about that. So I was like, all I did was I walked into an office at Championship Wrestling in Florida and hooked up with a great guy who, which looking back on wrestling now is so unusual. Hiro Matsuda.
Right.
Got it. Rest his soul. And it's always what's in it for me. If I'm going to help you, it's usually a family member's in or you got to contact something. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I walked into the office and said, I don't know if I'd be any good at it at all. I don't know anything about it. I might not be able to do it, but I played football for 7 years. My knees are still good, and I'm looking to make a career transition. And I was actually thinking of going to law school
Wow.
at Stetson.
Huh.
I was living in Tampa at the time,
Right.
and I was choosing between law school and going from football and the wrestling, and I chose wrestling. And it turned out to be a great decision. But I never watched it growing up. I mean, I guess making a short story long, but I mean, I never watched it growing up. I really didn't, but not because I didn't like it. I just wasn't exposed to it.
Right. What was training like under Hiro Matsuda?
Brutal.
I know they
He's
did a vignette with
He's
you.
legendary.
Right.
I mean, I heard about him breaking people's bones, and which is, I know he did. Dude, I was real fortunate that he was. Thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
He was real good with me, and he was strictly in it for the intrinsic enjoyment of seeing somebody succeed. In the sport of professional wrestling, he loved the sport. He had a real deep respect for it, and he taught me a lot of respect for it. And I was real fortunate to, looking back, I was so fortunate to be able to hook up with someone like him who taught me the right way to respect the veteran guys and keep your mouth shut in the locker room, in spite of all the rumors of my my attitude or behavior. It was, anybody knows me or really gets somebody as a friend knows that's all. Back then they called it the rag sheet, but that was internet stuff. But I'm not that kind of guy at all.
Right.
If I'm your friend, I'll do anything for you. And I'm not cocky. I'm not arrogant. I'm not. That's the last thing in the world I was raised to be. I also had a strict upbringing and taught to respect, open doors for women. I mean the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And it was bizarre how the rag sheets and the internet jumped on kind of the bandwagon. Which, hey, they have the right to do that. I don't have any resentment over that. Either. Free speech, right?
Right.
But I mean, I was always a bit miffed by that.
I'm going to actually ask you about that later on because you have a reputation for some of that stuff, but I'll ask you later on.
Which is like crazy.
Right.
Like crazy.
Now,
and anybody that really knows me knows that it's like crazy.
Right. Now back to Hiro Matsuda and the training. As far as him stretching you, because I know they did some vignettes with you on TV where they had you doing sit-ups and stuff like that. As far as like learning how to bump and the psychology of the business at the time in Florida, was he responsible for teaching that, or was it somebody else?
He would actually not take you in the ring for probably. I was the fastest guy who ever got into the ring. He made you do Hindu squats, jump Hindu squats, whatever they call them, push-ups, nonstop for like an hour and a half till you were, literally in a pool of water and a sweat. And he tried to break you to see if you really, really wanted to do it.
Would you say he's your mentor then at the time?
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Without doubt, yeah. I have nothing, the utmost respect for him. And he was, I probably got in the ring about 2 months after I did the push-ups and the Hindu stuff with him.
Right.
And took him to the ring, and then first week, all he had to do was hit the ropes. He doesn't even, he did one thing at a time.
Right.
Basics. Everybody always says, "Oh, Luger isn't a high flyer or a great worker," but really, my background with Matsuda was basics.
Right.
A ground attack, basic stuff. This is the way he taught me. Less is better. Do less things better.
Right.
Rather than all the high flying. Matsuda thought that stuff was kind of phony and fake looking. And he had he wanted
Look more
a lot of
legitimate.
legitimacy to business, and there's no reason athletically I couldn't come off the top rope and do all that stuff. But he taught me that and instilled in me that wasn't the way to go.
Right.
And I took criticism for that, but that didn't bother me, because obviously it didn't prevent me from having a pretty successful career. So,
Eddie Graham was the promoter at the time down there. What are your thoughts on Eddie Graham?
I never met Eddie.
Okay, you just knew Mike then.
Eddie already passed away.
Okay.
I knew Mike, but I did not know Eddie.
Okay. Now, did you realize that you were being groomed to be the star that would carry the mantle in the NWA later on? Did you realize that they were grooming you?
Well, I don't think you really know. If you're being groomed,
Right.
I knew they liked me, and obviously I had a great. I didn't even know who the Four Horsemen were.
Right.
I knew who Ric Flair was, but Arn Anderson and one into NWA from Florida after my first year. If you had held a gun to my head and said, "Show me who Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, or Ole Anderson are," I couldn't have told you. And I went straight from. I wrestled Flair a couple times down in Florida.
Battle of the Belts 3, I think.
And quite ineptly, but he carried me through.
Right.
And Rick really took a liking to me. And Rick, I have nothing but the utmost respect for. He's a great guy, and he was a real supporter of me and always talked well of me and always has to this day. And we still get along great. And Rick, Rick put out the word really for me for my entry into NWA wrestling with Crockett's, and that's why I went there. And I had no idea what a big deal the Horseman thing was at the time.
Right.
It wasn't a lack of appreciation. I just didn't know that they were the deal.
We'll get up to that in a second. I still want to talk about some Florida stuff. Like you worked the program a little bit with Wahoo McDaniel. Did you learn anything from working with Wahoo at all?
I really liked Wahoo. I mean, he was. I had a lot of respect for him as an athlete and a football player. He could almost like a scratch golfer and amazing guy. I mean, all pro in football. I mean, how can you not respect that? You know? I mean, he didn't want to work with me at first, of course. But you can't blame him. I'm a big guy, and here he is, a main event guy. Because there's more territories back then,
right.
And he's thrown in there with this guy who. He said, "Who's this guy? What am I going to do with him?"
Right.
And he didn't mean it personally at all, but he was. I really liked Wahoo, and he ended up, being a big help to me.
How about Barry Windham? You teamed with him down in Florida as well.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from working with Barry at all? Or?
Oh yeah, Barry's a great worker. I mean, I always and we got along well. Outside of the ring, so I was still in that younger party mode that back then.
Right.
So we had a good time together out of the ring and in the ring. So yeah, I always enjoyed working with Barry.
Now Bob Root down there, he had a big reputation for being a shooter and a tough guy. What was Bob like?
Bob never. I traveled with Bob actually. Him and Muda.
Right. I was going to ask you about him too.
And Bob never came across that way to me. I mean, never portrayed himself to me. I'd heard that about him. Like you hear about a lot of guys, but I mean, he never tried to act tough or try to impress me with what he knows or what kind of shooter he is. He was just a regular guy. He was a good guy. Or like Bob.
There was one specific match in Florida Championship Wrestling. It's kind of infamous on the internet. It was you against Bruiser Brody in a cage. Something happened in the match where Brody went himself.
Yeah, he just stopped working.
What are your memories of that night?
It was just bizarre.
Huh.
I just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, we have it on video. It shows you just
I'm like the referee looked at me. I looked at the referee. We're both like, "What's he doing?
Huh.
He's not doing anything." And what do we do? And
was there anything said before the match happened?
No. After the match or before?
Even before, did you make him stop selling at all, or was it just
no? He just stopped working.
Wow. What happened when you got to the back? Did you already leave, or did?
No, I walked over to him. I thought he was mad at me or something, or I did something wrong.
Right.
Because I was very green, and I said, "God, if I offended him or I did something wrong, I want to apologize."
Right.
I was, he was a big scary guy,
Right.
And I was like, I just want to get out of the ring because I didn't know what was going through his head. He had razor blades on his fingers, and I was like, what's this guy going to do next? You know what I mean?
What did he say?
Standing there looking at me, and no, he just said, "I'm working as a baby face in Texas right now. I'm getting over good there, and just your baby face here, it's just not working." And he goes, "No big deal." He said, and he was just like, he was totally cool after the match.
No heat from the office from the match, or that was
towards me?
No, towards him for working like that, or
I don't think they
not
both
to my
them.
knowledge. I mean, the office didn't talk to me about it.
Right.
They were probably upset. Yeah.
I don't think they booked them a lot after that.
I mean, I'm sure they weren't happy,
Right.
but I mean, I'm sure they questioned his professionalism.
right,
Because I would never do that to somebody.
Right, right.
But me, especially as inexperienced as I was, I didn't know what he was doing. I was like, is this guy on something, or I was like, is this guy freaking out on me, or what's he doing?
Right. Was there
I
any?
mean, if someone's fight me, I'll fight anybody. But I mean, but when you're in the ring, you're sacrificing and giving yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And when you know where somebody's coming from, you know where their head's at, you're kind of like, you know, this is kind of bizarre,
Right.
You know, real bizarre.
Right.
So I was just like, you know, I just told the referee didn't know what to do. I said, just DQ me.
Right. It was Fonzie, I think.
Fonzie.
Yeah, I said I'll keep on punching him and tell me to stop and DQ me, and then they couldn't get the door open.
Yeah, you jumped over
Jumped
the
over
top.
the cage.
I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. I know where his head was at. So
Right.
I was like, I'm getting the hell out of this cage.
Was there any resentment from any of the veterans maybe there that since you were new and maybe, you know, you didn't have that wrestling background that you're getting such a push so quick?
I'm sure looking back on it, I'm sure there was, but they didn't express it to me,
Right.
to my face.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm sure there was.
What led you go to Crockett?
That ties in with the Ric Flair thing. He came down to Florida a couple times and thought I had a lot of potential. And liked the way I looked, and you know, and the crowd always. I was real lucky. The crowd always, to the very, all through my career, whether I was a heel or a babyface, wherever it was, I always I bought into it, and I was always appreciative of that. I mean, the fans always. I was like the utility guy. I was like the the low maintenance, high productivity guy. I mean, if somebody got hurt or blew their knee out or something, well, oh, we need to heal. Well, it's Luger. It wasn't best for Luger. I'm talking about Luger's third person now, not Larry Full. But you know, it was like, and I knew enough at that point. That's not good to keep on switching back and forth, but the fans somehow, some way, kind of stayed with it, you know, and it was, you know, it was, you know.
Initial impressions of Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty,
Yeah,
wow,
when you first
he's a
met him.
character. He's a very charismatic, schmoozer kind of. Dusty Rhodes, American Dream kind of guy. You know, he helped me a lot. I mean, about the interviews. Before I go out to interview, he talked to me and said, keep it simple and say this. And he was always very, very helpful to me.
Now
so, as far as I know.
Right. Now, this was a different territory, obviously, from Florida.
I didn't know all the behind-the-scenes stuff that went on in the booking rooms and stuff, especially over my career. I mean, who knows what this is said about me there, but I mean, as far as to my face, Dusty was always very helpful, real nice to me, you know. So,
did you know
nothing but good things about him from my aspect, you know.
Right. Did you notice a big difference as far as the territories working down in Florida than being in a national company like NWA at the time?
For sure, the crowds are you know, 100 times larger, bigger arenas. You know, it's a huge difference. Yeah.
More pressure on you two to perform in the ring? Or?
You know, I never felt the pressure because I never read the back then the rag sheets.
Right.
And to this day, I can't turn the computer on. All bad stuff, probably a good thing. All bad stuff that's been said about me that is
you don't even know
from what
about
I've
it.
heard. Well, people have told me some stuff.
But you haven't read
I'm
it.
like, you got to be kidding me. That's totally like ludicrous. You know, but I never got into that because I never was a computer guy, and I was never read the rag sheets. I figured, you know, if I read those, I'd want to, you know, quit or something. You know,
Right.
I'd get discouraged, so I just sit away from the negativity. You know.
Since you had such a professional background, not wrestling, before wrestling, in your first year or two, what did you find like easiest to come along? The actual in the ring work, or the actual like playing to the crowd and the whole like?
I think playing the crowd is more difficult coming from football because football is strictly performance orientated.
Right.
You're graded, you know, every game and each play and on film and whereas in wrestling it's more ambiguous. It's not just what you do. It's
Psychology.
It's psychology. It's how does the crowd react to you when you walk out? They're listening to see how there's a buzz. There's I say the interaction with the crowd there's a lot more to that than the actual wrestling part of it. But I'm not dismissing that you should work. I always worked hard in the ring.
Right.
You say well, my work, but whether it was a house show and a small house show anywhere, and what I did, I didn't cut out bumps. I didn't, I'm paying for it now probably, but I never, I always worked hard, the best of my ability,
Right.
And I always thought that you owed the crowd that, whether it was a bad crowd or a good crowd.
Right.
The people that did pay deserved a good effort in there. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that was always my philosophy.
In your first couple of years, what did you find that you like better, being babyface or heel?
I always think it's easier to make people not like you than it is to make people like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is part of what we talked about earlier. We kind of touched on going back and forth. And it gets harder and harder the more you go back and forth.
Right.
To be a good guy.
Right.
Because there always going to be that contingent of sign carriers, and they might be 1% of the crowd. Everybody else might be with you, but they're the loudest, and they know where the hard camera is, and to try to bury you on TV or make it look like you're not liked. Either you're supposed to be liked, that kind of thing. So, I think it's more difficult to be, but I was always proud I was able to, semi pull it off. People seemed to like me out pretty well when I was babyface most of the time, and people when I was a bad guy, they got with that too.
Right.
Pretty much. So I felt fortunate that way.
Right.
What were your initial impressions of Jim Crockett Jr. when you first came to NWA?
Well, he was always very nice to me. I saw him teach other people. Like, I'm a watcher. I'm quiet. People take that as arrogance. And there's nothing I can do about it. When I was growing up, you're not speaking unless you're spoken to, especially a new guy.
Right.
So all people think that you're cocky or arrogant. And I did that out of respect. And once that starts, it kind of steamrolls, and people spread that word, and the fans and everybody starts thinking that's who you are when it's not. But I mean, they can think what they want. You can't prevent that.
Was there a lot of cliques back then when you first came into NWA territory?
I'm sure there was. I was pretty naive as far as the cliques, but I'm sure there was. Yeah.
Right.
What were your impressions of Tully and Arn when you first met them?
Tully hated my guts, I think.
Why is that?
Just
Were you a
because
threat?
Tully's a great worker, and I had nothing but respect for him, and he thought I was just some big muscle-up guy who's getting a big push because the way I look,
Right.
and whether I can work a lick or not. And I think Tully just, he's a good guy, but he kind of didn't like that,
Right. What about Arn?
Arn was always real nice to me. I mean, he'd get on me, but but I love Arn to death. He's a good guy. I always liked Arn. He's a great guy.
What are your memories of when you
And I
first?
like Tully too. I mean, I can't prevent him from the way he felt about me.
Right. What are your memories of when you first debuted on TBS? I think you did an interview segment with Barry Windham, and you told Barry that you wanted to be a horseman. What are your memories of that? It was a Saturday night.
Your first debut in Atlanta on the TV station?
As far as announcing I want to be a horseman,
Right.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that?
my memories were they said, we want you to be a horseman.
Right.
We want you to announce that you want to be a part of the elite group that I didn't know it was the elite group of wrestling, and I had no idea it was that big a deal. But I did what they told me to do, So that was my I just went out there and did what I was told to do, you know?
At that time,
Like I always have. I've never questioned a finish. I've never, it's what I remember, I always just done my job, you know? It's not a shoot, you know?
Right.
You're paid to do what they tell you to do, you know? I always thought it was unprofessional otherwise. You get a big head and say, oh, I can't do that. Well, why can't you? I thought, do favors for you. Why can't you do, or, you know, return the favor? You
Right.
know, I never had a problem doing jobs or, you know, I always thought that's just it's give and take, you know?
because of your size and stature, did WWF give you any feelers like early on, like even like as you were going?
I met
Crockett?
Vince McMahon in Las Vegas at a gym one time, and he just was real cordial, like he always is. He's a great schmoozer, and I mean in a bad way.
Right.
He's very, very personable, and came up to the gym and came up to me. He's a big deal. Who am I, you know? And shook my hand, said, I'm watching you and love to do business someday in the future. And, you know, that was my first contact with them, was with him in a gym.
Right.
Memories
But
of,
no business was talked about, like, oh, we're going to bring you in. Or
Right.
anything like that. It was just generalities.
Right.
You know?
Introduction.
Yeah.
now, when you first came in NBA, your first major feud, I guess, would be with Nikita Koloff. I think that was your first big feud, right?
Yeah, that was probably
Yeah.
big first singles feud.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah.
What was Nikita like to work with?
The Key's a good guy. He's a little different kind of guy.
In like what aspect?
Just he had gotten into this some kind of Amway thing or something
Oh, okay, yeah.
when I had met him. I
Right.
guess he lost a lot of weight, so everybody said he was real different. So he real changed, and this all was like PMA, positive mental attitude tapes and stuff. So it was a little different for me. I don't mean in a bad way either. You know, there's you know, Dr. Phil's and everybody makes a lot of money off that. So I mean, you know, nothing wrong with that stuff. You know.
Right.
And Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel obviously have arenas from up in Michigan off Amway and stuff. So, but it was a little different for me. But as far as working with him in the ring or talking to him outside of the ring, we didn't have any problem with each other at all. You know, we got along fine. You know,
Your match is pretty good?
as far as I know,
Right.
you know.
Do you think that Dusty put himself with you at Starrcade to help him get himself over at your expense?
You know, I just don't look at the wrestling business that way.
Right.
He was the booker. He was the main guy in the company, Crockett's main guy. And if he wants to beat me in Starrcade, and that's his choice, and then I had no problem with it. You know, I always think if you have a little bit of talent, you can overcome that.
Right.
If it is a detriment, you know, at all, you know.
You have a very good rep for being a very smart businessman, even back then at the time. Was there any tension between you and management due to you being a really good businessman?
There might have been some tension as far as I was like the original contract guy,
Right.
you know, because it was kind of like, you know, I came from football, and you know, you kind of had some kind of at least base guarantee what you're going to make, and wrestling was so arbitrary. I kind of maybe rubbed them the wrong way that way a little bit, you know.
Somebody was telling me that.
But it's a good thing that I got what I did, because, I mean, I really was the first. I mean, I don't mean to just put myself over at all to take it the wrong way. I was the first guy to get a large guarantee. Guys had minimum guarantees like $75,000 or something, but if they had hurt or something, they could pay their bills. But I was the first guy to really get a guaranteed contract, and now it's you know,
right. Everyone's.
it's a regular thing in the business. So,
Did that ruffle?
and I'm not taking that as oh, I'm so smart, or I'm such a good businessman. I just thought it was the right thing, you know.
Did that ruffle some feathers of peers of yours at all, or?
Some of the guys, when they found out I had a a pretty good baseline guarantee. I think it ruffled the feathers a little bit, but once again, like I said, I can't do anything about that.
Right.
I mean, my point to them was, if they offered you money, would you turn it down?
Right.
Right.
I mean, give me a break, You're mad at me because I took a large guaranteed contract at that time.
Right.
It would be large now, but at the time, and you're mad at me, and it's actually a precursor for them that help lead them to get guarantees. So I mean, it was really a good situation,
Somebody was telling me that when you guys would go to house shows, you were able in your head to calculate how many fans were in the house, and you would be like, "Oh, this is what they made," before even like the management would know.
No, that's that part of it. I'm not near that smart. I had no idea about that, about ticket prices and
Right.
how many families were in seats, and how much they made, and
Not merchandise money. They just said that you were pretty good at figuring out the house from just looking out the curtain. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
When was the first time you were actually told that you were going to be next in line for like the NWA World Title?
They don't really. I never said I wasn't one of the guys or one of the wrestlers who said on booking meetings ever.
Right.
So I wasn't privy to that kind of talk. So it was kind of like they just say you're going over tonight, or you're not.
Right.
I never was really in on a build up phase, and we're planning on doing this with you and this and that. I just pretty much
Showed up and did what you had to do.
showed up and work and worked as hard as I could, and did what they told me to do.
Did titles even matter to you, or was it purely just business?
I think it matters. I mean, I think it's earns you some respect from the fans and stuff like that, and it gives you a little more legitimacy with the crowd and stuff. So yeah, titles matter. It wasn't just business, I mean, it's legitimately fun when you have a title match and you win. I'd be a liar to say, it's not fun when you win a big title match.
Right.
That'd be a lie. Yeah, it's fun. And it does mean something. I brought up, I said with Hiro Matsuda, tradition of the business. If you win a world title, that's a big deal. Respect wise.
Plus it's more money.
No, it's not even the money thing. That's a big deal.
Right.
And how many guys can say they're world champions? There's, it's not a really, really long list. So it's a real feather in your cap. So yeah, it does. It's not just dollars and cents to me. It never was. Titles and stuff definitely meant something, and were I appreciate it if I had a belt or something, because I shouldn't win it. They put it on you, so it's kind of a respect and honor thing.
Right.
And you try to carry it the best you could.
Was Ric Flair a mentor at the time, or do you think he was insecure about your quick push?
No, I never felt that from Rick myself. I mean, people have their own opinions, but I never felt Rick being resentful towards me or anything. He wanted to teach me to do more things in the ring and add to my repertoire as much as I could do. I'd never be a Ric Flair worker, but I mean, he didn't want me to be, because them body types, different look, So he was. I always felt like Rick was very helpful.
Did anybody ever give you advice on how to do promos?
And it's really hot in here, guys.
Is it really?
You're sweating.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. See, it's all the way up, actually.
So yeah, this is. Oh no, this doesn't move.
It's me. I keep my place like 60 degrees.
Really?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sure it's me.
What do you remember about the Crockett when he brought UWF? And was there tension or clicks between the two companies when he first brought UWF?
I heard there was. At the time, I didn't know. Once again, I was pretty new in the business, so I didn't know there was, but I guess there was.
Right.
And once I got to know Sting and started to travel with him, he felt like he explained that they were treated kind of like they were the lower echelon, and
Like
we were
second
the
class.
big deal. And I mean, Sting didn't mean it in a bad way. He just felt, they were like second class,
Right.
And me being on the ones who weren't treated that way, I guess I didn't really see it that way,
Right.
which is, I guess, human nature. You know, I didn't try to treat him with disrespect at all, but I mean, I just, once I talked to Sting and got to know him real well and everything, I could see his point, you know, definitely.
How did your friendship actually develop with Sting?
It's funny. The first time, he'd know my sense of humor, and I have a kind of dry, sarcastic sense of humor.
Right.
People take it the wrong way a lot of times, and it's just who I am, and it's not meant to be cocky or anything. First time, Sting said to me, he came out and goes, "How do you stay in such good shape, traveling and this stuff?" I go, Stolies and peanut covered M&Ms.
Huh.
And he walked away like, "You gotta be kidding me." I complimented you and you dissed me. You know what I mean? We joked about that forever after that, you know. And but Sting's a great guy. And he gave us, luckily, he gave me a second chance. We had and still have a great friendship, you know.
I'm going to ask you more about him later on. Whose idea was to turn you babyface against the Horseman?
Whoever was in charge of the booking,
Probably Dusty.
Dusty, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, I'm being honest with you guys. I never sat in one booking meeting.
Were you for it or against it, or?
Once again, I don't want to be cliche, but Matsuda really drilled me. You do what you're told to do.
Right.
You know, you promoter pays you your paycheck. You do what it tells you to do. If he wants you to turn babyface, you do it.
Right.
You know, and do the best you can do at it.
Right.
He wants you to be a bad guy or a heel, you be the best heel you can be.
How did your matches at that time with Barry Windham differ from your matches down in Florida, or were they pretty much the same?
As far as wrestling against Barry,
Or did you feel that you were evolving as in the ring and everything? Did you feel that maybe they were smoother and a lot better? Could you feel that you were like your talent?
I think everybody gets more comfortable in the ring,
Right.
And interacts to the crowd as they get more experience. But I was always just a basic ground attack guy. I never did a lot of fancy stuff, and I just once again going back to Matsuda, he taught wrestle.
Right.
Don't do all this flipping and all that crazy stuff that's so
Right.
prevalent now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I respect the guys who do this stuff. It's great talent, athletic ability. But I mean, Barry's a great worker. I mean, gosh,
One of the best.
Yeah, one of the best ever. So I had nothing but respect for that. From that, you can't help but learn something, no matter how bad you are. Working with him, a guy that's that good worker.
At what point in your career did you actually able to start calling a lot of your own matches, and did the vets resent that at all? Or?
Ricky Steamboat taught me how.
Wow.
I never called a move in my match until Ricky Steamboat said, "No one's ever taught you how to call a match." I go, "No." So he started calling the whole match. I have a program with him. Pretty great guy. Steamboat, by the way, super nice guy. And he called the whole match and go, "Okay, tonight I'm going to let you call the heat." He lets you call it good or bad.
Right.
Afterwards, he sits down with you and say, "Okay, this was good, this was bad. You should have done this here, but you should have done that after. And here's why." And he really made sense of things.
Right.
And then he got to the point where he said, "I want you to call my moves for me. You know what I do." So he took me through the point of not ever calling anything.
Wow.
To calling his and my part of the match.
Right. Wow.
So other than the comeback, which we pretty much everybody had their own trademark kind of comeback. I mean, he walked me through it over a period of months, step by step. Great guy.
So you were actually able to take that knowledge and put it to your match with other guys. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ricky was a huge help in that way.
What were some of your favorite NWA towns to work in?
Our narrative, I was joking that I was clueless, and until I worked with Ricky Steamboat, I probably was pretty clueless. You know what I mean?
what are your thoughts actually when Arn and Tully left?
When
They left the company, I think it was around '89. They went to Vince.
I was sad. I thought they were traditional. There was a little bit of WCW tradition versus WWF at the time, WWF,
Right.
you know, and it was kind of sad, you know, to see them go up there. Just, I wanted what was best for them.
Do you think they made the right decision at the time?
I can't judge that, you know what I mean? They do what was best for them, you know what I mean? I mean, they have families to feed and kids, and you know, I'm all for them doing what they want to do. I'm not gonna sit and judge them what they did or how it worked. You know what I mean? To say, oh, that they did good or they didn't do good or whatever. You know what I mean? They did at the time what they thought was best for them and their family. You know, and I respect that. I want them to do well. You know?
Memories of the first War Games match that you were involved in?
Pretty crazy. Sting was jumping from one ring to the next and over 2 ropes. And guys bleeding all over the place and pretty.
The one where JJ got
pretty
injured.
different.
Did JJ get injured in the one War Games? His shoulder.
Yeah, the cage was too low, and the Road Warriors were supposed to move, and the Road Warriors don't mean bad by it at all. But if they were supposed to move, they were gonna get it in. You know,
somebody we were talking to
and
was
they hurt his shoulder, but they didn't mean to do it.
Right.
I mean, you know, gosh, they felt horrible afterwards. You know.
Did you like that kind of style matches with the cage and the? Did you like it in your matches, the cage matches? Because they did a lot of cage matches in Crockett. And there was like a lot of.
I liked it because it helped draw bigger crowds.
Right.
So that I always liked wrestling for more people than less. You know. But to me, whether it was a cage match or a regular match, it really didn't matter that much, to be honest with you.
Were you for or against all the color that they had?
You know what? I got color myself, and Ric Flair taught me how, and I was scared to do it or anything else, and I did it. But I didn't like the outcome for some of the guys that seen him done for like 20 years. I'm human. Look at some of the guys, their whole foreheads was like all scar tissue. It's kind of like, whoa, you know.
Like Manny Fernandez.
Yeah, I don't have looking like that. I don't mean in a bad way, but you know.
What do you remember about?
Maybe leave that door openers. I mean, it's really warm.
Okay.
It's too noisy.
Yeah,
the noise might interfere.
but we have a couple minutes, and then we'll do a shape change, and then we'll let the air in. We've got
cool.
like maybe 8 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
What do you remember about Turner's purchase of WCW?
I was told very little,
Right.
other than move to Atlanta. We don't want to pay your extra airfare from Charlotte,
Right. Wow.
so move to Atlanta.
Did the boys think that something big was going to happen now that Turner was involved? More money would be put into the
Oh,
company?
I'm sure. Yeah, we all regard it as a positive. You know,
Right.
Ted Turner does things in big ways. You know, and we all look at it as a positive. Definitely at the time. Come back on it. Yeah.
Now, Jim Herd actually got involved in the company. Herd is pretty much known as a goofy guy who did a lot of goofy angles and didn't know the wrestling business. Do you remember any proposed things that you turned down that he proposed to you?
I never. You know what? In spite of what anybody says, I have never turned down a finish, anything in my entire career. I never have ever disputed. I've just done what I've been told to do in the ring.
Right.
So, good or bad for me, because that's the way I was brought into business by Hiro. So, he may have. I don't recall anything like in particular. I'm going to know that Jim Herd really hated me,
Right.
you know, or had it out for me, you know. So, but I'm sure there was things he had me do that. I was kind of, one thing I think I was not abused, but I think they used the fact that I could be a babyface or a heel, which really is a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
That I could switch back and forth so many times and still be
over.
Yeah, I mean that's it's hard to keep it legitimate doing that, and I thought they kind of at times took advantage of that a little bit when, like I said, when I got injured and needed a babyface or heel. It's like, let's switch Lex. He'll do it, you know, and he'll do okay. He'll do okay job with it.
You did it again with Sting when he got hurt. They turned you face again. So
always.
All right. What do you
Like
remember?
the utility outfielder or something.
What do you remember of Brian Pillman? You had a great series with Brian.
Brian was a funny guy, man. He worked hard, played hard. He was Brian Pillman was a funny guy to be around. He was very gregarious and outgoing, and I have nothing but fond memories of Brian. I think he was a great guy.
Did you learn anything from working with him? Because your styles were so different. You know, he was a high flyer.
Sure. I mean, you always do. I mean, it's just through osmosis. You know, I know I couldn't do the things he did,
Right.
but I mean, at the same time, I think I love guys who can do all the fancy stuff because it made me look good. You know, because if I don't do the fancy stuff and they do it,
Huh.
I'm in a match where some guys doing high flying stuff. So they go, oh, that's a good match. Look at that. And I'm involved. So I never was jealous or resentful. I'm sure you learn something, you know, out of that, and you learn when to do something, when not to. How much of it should you do? How much you shouldn't? You know, stuff like that. You know.
When do you think that if you were to sit down and say, all right, this is when I was pretty much in the business and I knew what to do and when not to do it, would it be around 88, 89 when you pretty much mastered your craft?
You know what? Once again, I had to go back. Well, that's one of the things, you never master your craft.
You always learn.
Yeah, you're always learning. You never know it. You never can't improve. You never can't learn something. Every crowd can be different. From Europe to Boston or New York or Philly, and then go back next time, and the same crowd can be different.
Right.
You know, so you're always learning something. You know.
Memories of working with Terry Funk. You worked with him.
I didn't work with him very much.
Just it was a brief thing, I think. It was around 89.
I only worked with him a few times.
Right. Did you like Terry?
Yeah, Terry. My gosh, Terry's a great guy. Once again, like Brian, funny guy.
Right.
Locker room, joking around. He's fun to have around. And yeah, Terry's a great guy.
What was the story with Ric Flair refusing to drop the title to you? I think it was around.
You know, I never looked at it that way. It wasn't refusing to drop it to me. I think he had a problem with the company.
Right.
It wasn't a problem with Lex Luger.
Okay.
And I never looked at it that way. So I never took it personal. You know,
It was politics.
I just, it was us between him and the booking committee and people on the company. I never took it personally at all because Rick, you know, has issues with the company.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that I knew Rick liked me personally, so I really never took it that way. In spite of rumors, I'm sure, but I never took it that way.
What do you actually remember about the political struggle between Flair and Dusty? Because there was a lot of tension between the two.
I just think they were both a couple charismatic guys who liked the limelight
Huh.
in a good way
Right.
for the wrestling business, and that I think that just naturally leads to some conflict. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's just going to happen. You know, and so they clashed at times. I think, you know, over that. Whether you want to call it ego or I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, just it's two big illuminating figures in the same ring or in the same room, and
Clash.
that's going to clash sometimes. You know what I mean?
Was there ever any incidents that stood out between the two?
Oh no, nothing.
Okay.
Right.
They were cordial.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know what they said behind each other's back. I wasn't privy to that.
Huh.
You know, at home or something.
Right.
Behind closed doors, but I never saw anything real mean or nasty or mean-spirited exchanges between them, you know.
Some wrestlers to this day are bitter towards Ric Flair for leaving WCW and taking the belt on Vince's TV with intentions of crippling the company. What are your thoughts on that? And was there like a divide in the locker room between Flair's allies and the enemies, or?
Not, I didn't feel there was any real division there. I thought some of the guys thought that was unprofessional, but they would take the belt with it. That was kind of unheard of.
Right.
You know,
Right.
he had some, I don't know, he said it was under really a belt and he could take it. It was some legal thing. So
Right.
I don't think it was kind of like a legal thing. I never look at it like he personally was trying to screw WCW and all of us guys.
Right.
You know, I never really took it that way. So Rick's Rick. You know, he's a good guy. I think he was doing what's best for Rick. You know, and for his family. So I never. There might have been some divisions. I think in the office stuff, of course.
Right.
Which once again, I'm not privy to. I'm not kayfabe in here or anything. I've never sat in one booking meeting. You know, so I don't know what they said about him. wouldn't happen. You know, I'm sure they weren't happy with him.
Right.
In Flair's book, he was really hard on Bret Hart for what happened at Survivor Series and the possibilities of Bret coming to WCW with Vince's belt. Do you feel that Rick's a hypocrite because he did it in the WCW and took the belt there to WWE? Right time WWF.
Boy, you know, that's the first time I ever heard Bret want to take the WWF belt to WCW.
It was a possibility that was talked about. So.
I never even heard of that.
Right.
Once again, I'm not an internet
Right.
or I didn't read originally the rag sheets, so
Right.
all that stuff that you guys probably know 1,000 million times more than I didn't even know about. You know, not being like I don't care. I care a lot
Right.
about the business, but I wasn't
You just
had
didn't know.
knowledge of it. You know,
Memories of working with Stan Hansen back then
ooh,
and his
boy.
stiff style.
He's rough, man. I'd be alive if I didn't say that. He wouldn't even let you in the ring sometimes. I'm like, well, you know, I was inexperienced. I'm showing respect. Matsuda taught me and everything else. I'm like, gosh, you gonna let me in the ring or what? You swing this bell around, and you know, so it was a learning experience. It really was.
Right.
You know,
Any problems with him at all as far as like his stiff?
I heard rumors from other guys that he get problems with me, but
He's professional.
as far as him and I in the ring, we never had any problems or incidents or anything in the back where we were like, you know, trying to screw me around or what's your problem? No.
Have you ever had any problems in the back at all, like with guys like that?
No. I mean, knock on wood, you know, I've never really, not to my face anyways, really that had a real major problem. Nothing I've had problems with some guys. I was worked it out, you know. Shawn Michaels, I had a misunderstanding one time.
I'm gonna ask you about that.
We talked it out. So, and we both were wrong. We both apologized. So,
I have a question.
in my mind, it was totally cool. I like Shawn a lot, you know.
I'll ask you about that in coming up. What do you remember about Paul Heyman from this time? What are your memories of Paul?
No, I still to this day I never knew Paul that good.
Wow.
I respect him for trying to run that company,
Right.
you know, and get something else going
ECW.
because it's good for. Obviously, with only one company in the States now, it's not good for wrestling. For the wrestlers, I mean.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not good for wrestling, but it's not good for the wrestlers
Right.
to have options. But I mean, I respect him for that. But he was kind of I saw people thought, oh, he used a cell phone and thinks he's a big deal. Well, I thought he was just kind of working his gimmick, you
Right.
know? So I never had a problem with it at all. You know, I was like, cool, you know, whatever was your thing, you know?
What about Michael Hayes? What are your memories of working with Michael?
Once again, I was told to do a program with him, and I did the best I could.
Right.
You know, I think he did too. You know, I never. If he had a problem with me, I never knew about it. He'd say to my face, you know, and I just did the best I could. You know.
Now, do you think Flair basically just left and then you had the cage match with Barry?
Oh yeah. Well, luckily it didn't, because my career flourished after that. I had some of my best years after that.
Right.
Knock on wood. I'm very fortunate. Looking back on it, you know, there's probably a few times I switched from babyface to heel or when I was in a situation where maybe I didn't know enough, but looking back at it, could have been the kiss of death, and I endured. You know, thanks to really the fans, really.
Right.
You know, I really am appreciative of that. I mean, I really, really am. They somehow stepped by me, man. When I got switched too much, or I won a vacated belt, and you know, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this. I actually had to go to the ring that night with a fake belt.
Right,
I didn't
right.
have a real one. You know what I mean? The fans still cheered, and they were, you know what I mean? It was, you know, made the best out of whatever hand you're dealt. You know,
Right.
I think about that in life. You do the best you can do. You know,
Right.
there's things that don't always go your way. You know, and you deal with it and do the best you can do. You know.
Switch tapes. You want to?
Cool. That's like.
Both cameras are good. We're good.
How did you wind up with Harley Race as your manager?
Boy, that sound like I'm brain dead or something, but
They just put them with you.
I'm the way I recall it was with Flair leaving for WWF with the belt, and Harley being a long time NWA champion. They felt that doesn't have a chance of carrying it off as the champion, which I don't know what bad spot that I was actually being put in.
Right.
Harley might add some legitimacy.
They gave it to you for like a rub.
Legitimacy, yeah,
Right.
of course. It would be a good rub. So I think they thought that'd be a good thing. And Harley and I got along great. I mean, I love Harley. I mean, we travel in the car together, and people would think Harley would be a little traditionalist and this cocky Lex Luger or something. And Harley got to know me for who I am and didn't prejudge me. And we got along great, man. I mean, he's a great guy.
How many
I love
speeding
Harley.
tickets did you get?
Oh, man. Harley Harley would kill me. Harley could drive 100 miles an hour with the beer in one hand, with the one finger on the wheel. He's scary, but he's a driving fool.
At one point,
I learned from Harley. I have 20 points on my license. I learned from the best.
is it true that Harley was fired at one point and you actually quit the promotion until they brought him back?
I didn't quit. I just felt that with the position that the company was left in, from their perspective, not mine, of Flair taking off the belt and me trying to get over the same belt. If you're going to start something, don't do it for a couple months and just scream for no reason to stop it. So I expressed my concerns and was pretty much, follow through, guys. Come on.
Right.
I mean, I've been trying my best. I might be the greatest worker in the world. I might not be this, but you hand this fake belt to me, basically, and want me to be your world champion, and you give me Harley Race, who's a legend, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, for a budget cutback, you want to fire Harley? Yeah, I did have a problem with that.
Right.
It wasn't. I never had a problem for what I was told to do, but I had a problem with that. I thought it was just disrespectful to Harley.
Who did you have to take it up with?
The guys who were in charge then, I guess it was who was in charge then? Dusty and who else was in charge then?
I don't know when Kid
Watson
Fry came in.
Watts wasn't there yet. I was never there when Watts was there.
Was he gone?
It was Jim Herd and
Friday?
Dusty and them. Yeah, probably. I would say, yeah, it was Jim Herd. Jim Herd.
Right.
Yeah, but he comes from a business background, so him it was just a budget cut.
Right.
And I don't think he knows how guys like myself and other guys talk about Harley Race or the legend and how he should get the respect. And you shouldn't just say, okay, because we want to cut back. We're losing money anyway, so let's at the time, so let's get rid of Harley. I'm like, why Harley?
Right.
Especially when he's associated with the world champions. To me, it didn't quite make sense. I thought it was disrespectful to Harley.
Who was the one who ran the Omni? Was that Kip Fry or Jim Herd? He ran the Omni, and then they put him in the.
Well, see that you guys
Seth-
the business aspect thing that I
Right.
never really knew about.
Right.
I'm not being dumb or naive. I just never delved into that stuff that much.
Right.
As far as who ran what and
I'm sure there was a lot of
who counted the
resentment.
money and did they steal money and some of the older guys in business about stuff. I never learned any of that or really knew anything about that.
There's a story going around that somebody ribbed you because they asked you who Luthez was and you didn't know who Luthez was, and then the boys ribbed you for that or something like that.
Yeah, sure they did. I mean, he's a legend and deserved all the respect. But I told you I didn't grow up watching wrestling. It wasn't disrespect for him
Right.
at all. So yeah, they were like, you know who Luthez is? And I'm like, no. It's like I didn't know who the Four Horsemen were.
Right.
It wasn't disrespecting at all. Like, or I'm a big deal, and I don't care who these guys are. I knew who it was. And so yeah, it was like embarrassing. I did get ribbed for it. Yeah, definitely, deservedly so.
Around 91, 92, when Flair left, you were obviously like one of the seniors in the company. Did you try to take leadership role, or did you really not care at that point?
I always care.
Okay.
To this day, I care. I mean, I I told you, whether it was a house show that wasn't advertised properly, in front of 200 people, or Madison Square Garden. So I watch the same match. So I always care. So because the 200 people, I feel that show up deserve, to give it the effort from the guys.
Right.
So I always care. But as far as taking a leadership role, as far as I'm not like I knew wrestling was never going to get unionized because the wrestlers would never stick together.
Right.
So I was never a guy that was, if someone would ask my advice and I legitimately wants my advice, I would give it to them. I never offer it. And that's not, I don't care. It's because I don't think it's my place to say want my opinion.
Right.
That's a respect thing.
Right.
Just to another human being, I don't go to guys that have matches and start being leader. Hey, you shouldn't have done this and that. That was the wrong place to do that. And I'm doing that in my match. You should ask me. And I never did this. I always thought it was taking the high road, I guess. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, take the high road. If a guy wants to do 10 man high spots and half of them are in your match later on, and God bless him, Let him do it, I'm not going to get worked up about it,
Right. Memories of your match with Sting against the Steiners. It was really rare because at the time it was like one of the first times that a national company had two babyface tag teams going against each other.
Yeah,
was
no
a
one
great
thought
match.
it'd work.
And that was good. It was really good.
No one thought it'd work. I can't take credit for it because Sting and them put Kim Melissa spots, but because I'm not like a spot kind of guy,
Right.
in my head. But yeah, that was a good feeling, that match, because everybody in the back was like, the veteran guys, oh, they're going to bomb. Here's four of the not young but younger bay faces that were pushing. We'll throw them in the same match together. Watch them. Let's see how they do without us. Making them look good.
Right.
And the match turned out good, so it was satisfying that we had a good match. We that was very enjoyable.
How did things play out with you going to WWF? What made you leave WCW at the time?
Really, the thing with Harley kind of started me thinking, oh gosh, we're if you can't respect Harley race and stuff like that, what is there here? Not that there wasn't anything there. They paid my paycheck. I appreciated of it and everything else, but I was kind of, and I think anybody who was at WCW at the time wanted to at least try to succeed with WWF, because they were always, at that point, considered number one. You know what I mean? So if you're ambitious and care about the business, you at least want to try. So I think it wasn't so much disenchantment with WCW, but wanting to try, WWF.
Did you contact them?
How'd that come down exactly?
Because I know you were still under contract when you went there, and that's why they brought you in.
Actually, I did the bodybuilding thing.
Right.
Segue.
That was the way to bring you in.
That was the way to bring me in, and not interfere with like an actual wrestling contract.
What did you think of the WBF?
I wanted to succeed because I didn't Vince put a lot of money into it, time and effort. He cared a lot about it.
Right.
And I didn't know if it would work, but I wanted it to work. And it didn't turn out very well. He's done a lot of things well, obviously, but it didn't turn out well. But I wanted to do well for him.
What did he propose actually with the WBF? Where did he want to take it? I mean, obviously it didn't go where he wanted it to, but
I think he wanted to be like an entertainment extravaganza with the guys, with the guy, like almost like cartoon characters who pose these super bodies and
right.
And make them like Batman and Superman and the different nicknames. And I thought he could really, pull up pay-per-views and stuff like that. And you can't blame him for trying. He said a lot of stuff people probably said wouldn't work, and they have. So, that one didn't work. But I mean, can't blame him for trying. You got to respect his a lot of balls.
Right.
Trying.
What were your initial impressions of Vince when you first met him? Now actually do business with him.
Just treats you like a member of his own family. I mean, takes you to his house, his poolside. Must have made 2 fish sandwiches with you in his kitchen and my house is your house, and nothing but a positive impression from him. It was very, very personable and very a great guy to be around. You know.
Did he make any promises to you at that point when you first met him?
I never was into promises because once again, I mean, if he wants me to lose 100 times in a row, win 100 times in a row, he's paying my paycheck.
Right.
That's his prerogative. I don't take it personally. Like, oh, are you out to bury me? No, I don't take it that way. If you think it's best for the company to lose 100 straight times, then you're paying me good money to lose 100 straight times. I'm going to lose 100 straight times. I never, no, never,
Were you welcomed over there, or was it political against the ex-WCW guys, or did they welcome you?
Looking back, I'm sure there's probably some, but no one said anything in my face. Everybody just was pretty cordial in my face, you know what I mean? But I'm sure there was some resentment,
Right.
When we come in and especially that bodybuilding deal and stuff,
Right.
I heard there was resentment. I don't know, in fact, no one said that in my face, and there could have been. I'm not saying, I'm not naive enough to say there wasn't any,
Did WCW try to stop you from doing the WBF as well?
Yeah, they did. I mean,
when you left, were you still under contract with WCW?
I just couldn't wrestle under a wrestling contract. Yeah, I just couldn't wrestle.
Right.
So
And they,
bodybuilding has nothing to do with wrestling.
right.
So
But they try to sue
but they did try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you at any point told that there might be an inevitable program with you and Hogan down the line, or?
Never.
Oh, okay.
That was never even discussed. No. I always wanted to work with him. I respected him and thought, to this day, he's a huge name in the business. He could walk out there right now and he'll get a huge ovation,
Right.
So, but never promised, I don't know. Like I said, I've done under promises, or you don't have to promise me anything. You know what I mean? You're my boss.
Right.
You don't owe me anything other than pay me. If I work, you pay me. So, I don't need any promises, and he never promised me anything.
Okay. What actually happened with your motorcycle accident? And is it true that you actually have a plate in your arm?
Yeah, I do. There's about this long, and there's 7 screws down through both bones right there.
Wow.
That actually the bone came through 2 spots. I actually was into a curve that was a lot more of a curve than I thought. There was a dusk, and when you track a 700-pound Harley into a curve and you're going too fast, and it was banked the wrong way. It was set banked this way, it went this way. It was banked kind of this way, so everything was working against me. And just when I came around that curve, there was a car there at the same time. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, lucky.
I've had a lot of lucky things happen, but and I was lucky to survive that. I mean, I had on the car, man. I mean, I flew off that motorcycle like a space rocket. I mean, I must have flipped 15, 20. I felt like it was on. The only way I can describe it, I felt like it was on a dryer or a washer machine. It tumbled. I mean, man. And there was trees everywhere. I missed every tree. So, I mean, my arm was real bad. They were thinking about the doctors at the hospital in Atlanta before Andrews in Birmingham, who's I love to death. He's my man.
Right.
They were talking about cutting my arm off.
Wow.
Because it was so bad. Because it said all your nerves run through here, and with both bones sticking out like that, I had a double compound fracture and dislocated elbow. They said he'll never have full feeling in his hand again. I've never had any loss of mobility or strength in my right hand, left hand, or anything. So, and even Andrew said, I did surgery, but the rest is with luck and Mother Nature and God.
Right. How long did they tell you were going to be out for?
They said it would probably be about, well, they're not exact bones, it's kind of like when we keep it in x-rays until it's healed.
Right.
They felt probably about 5-6 months when I came back. I was usually came off injuries faster than most, luckily. I usually did. Fortunately, hardly ever missed a match my whole career, so I was lucky there too. But I mean, durability-wise.
Right.
So, which I think is a big plus for promoters because, push come to shove, some guys get a great reaction, but they're hurt at the time,
Right.
and I very rarely got hurt.
Right.
And I mean, knock on wood once again, but I was very fortunate. I hardly ever missed a match my whole career due to injuries. So, I've been hurt,
Right.
but I mean, I was also taught by Matsuda, unless if you can walk to the ring, you can wrestle.
Right.
You know, so you know, you don't be a baby and say, "Oh, my shoulder hurts," or a little bit of, you know. I separated both my shoulders, and bone sticks out here. I didn't even know it. Because I wrestled, I had a ruptured disc I wrestled with, didn't know it. You know, I was taught that, I was brought in that if you're hurt, but if you can still like walk to the ring, you still, the crowd shows up, you're advertised, you do it, you know, kind of attitude, you know.
Now, you went down and did a few shots, I guess, when you were in WWF from Memphis. Did you feel like they were regressing, going back to a territory, or did you figure you just had to go down there and do what they were telling you to do? Because you went down there and you worked with Brian Christopher, I believe.
I worked with Jerry Lawler, I think.
Lawler.
Yeah.
I think you were with Christopher. He was a heel. You were probably his tag partner.
Yeah, you came down.
Yeah, I don't think I worked with Brian
Lawler and Jarrett.
Yeah, it was
Tags.
like Jerry Lawler and some of those guys, yeah. But no, I listened to they wanted to get my timing back.
Right.
They had no idea what I could do out there.
Right.
That was the first layoff I ever had, so I didn't look at it as
They just wanted to test
anything
you.
demeaning at all, or a test of my attitude. I thought I needed it.
Right.
You know, I wanted to check out my arm and see if it still worked right.
Right,
you know?
right.
So I didn't look at it that way at all.
How did you get along with Bobby Heenan when they put you guys together?
Bob and I didn't work that much together. They just used him for to give me a rub when I first came in because he was so over.
Right.
So I was just happy that he, you know, was involved with me when I first went in there because he'd go house shows and stuff with me, but he was on TV with me, some of the stuff. And then Bobby Heenan was, at the time, and I still think is one of the best managers ever. So I thought it was a plus, you know.
And he always
compliment.
He always had the top heels at the time.
Yeah,
so you knew you were going to get
I
good
thought
matches.
that was great. Yeah.
Did you like the gimmick, the Narcissist gimmick?
You know, at first I was a little taken back by it, but once again, you know, I've never refused to do anything. So I said, "You want me to be the narcissist? I'll be the narcissist." You know, and I got into the very best I could possibly do. You know, so I got in front of the mirror and I dragged guys in front of the mirror and I wore the weird robe and you know I did just what they designed for me and I just figured he's paying me to come in here and that's what he wants me to do and gosh darn, I'm going to do the best thing I can with it. You know,
Right.
When Vince was indicted by the feds,
I try to make the best out of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Whatever they give
my
you,
life is
you're roll with it.
the hand you're dealt. Make the best of it. Don't be a crybaby or whiner or you know. I just figure you know just hey, if you want to be a narcissist, I'll be the very best narcissist. It's hard to say that I can be.
Right.
And if I'm a good one, great. If I get happy, great. I want to make my employer happy. You know, so the best I could with it. It actually was working pretty good.
It was good stuff. When Vince was indicted by the feds, what were your thoughts and the thoughts of the locker room?
I think I think the overall sentiment was that was concern for Vince. I mean, you know, stuff that, especially back then. I mean, we see guys to this day getting suspended all the time from track and field and from football for positive tests for steroids and stuff, and they're not being indicted for anything.
Right.
I mean, they might get suspended.
Right.
They're not up on law charges.
Going to jail and everything.
Yeah, or going to jail. So now obviously they had the stuff.
Right.
So you know, the police are tearing up their house apart. So, but it's, you know, tracing a FedEx envelope, probably you know that. I thought it was kind of a witch hunt.
Right.
I think that was the general sentiment of the guys that he was being picked on. You know, he was that one particular guy, I forget his name, really had it in for Vince. One prosecutor, and most guys that I know, the general sentiment was it was pretty unfair. You know, Vince thought it was unfair, and it cost him a ton of legal money and everything else, and for something. I'm not saying I've been honest with kids when I was working from a good solid time, and I've taken steroids and that they're not a good thing. And I've been honest. I don't know hypocrite. Although I've never taken anything, so I've never tested positive for steroid. But I don't lie either, so I never took one. You know, and so nobody thought Vince had done anything where he should be put in jail at the time. Not that steroids are a good thing, but I mean nothing to like you'd be snatched out of your house, thrown in jail,
Yeah.
you know, handcuffs and stuff, you know.
Did you think back then that you?
And people do recreational drugs in their home and smoke reefer and stuff all the time. I don't see their house get torn apart or thrown in jail,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So it looked like kind of a witch hunt to me. you know?
Right.
I'll talk about stories later on because I'll ask you about stuff like that later on. But I do want to touch on that. Memories of your series with Bret Hart. What was it like working with Bret?
Oh, Brett's a great guy having the ring with you. He's totally professional. He's brought up through like I was with Matsuda old school and works hard every night, and he always brings it, and he always wants to have a good match. Big house, small house, and it was funny the first time I worked with him. I came up from Memphis off my arm injury, and Scott Hall got hurt, and he had a program with Bret. Bret was world champion, so they threw me in house shows with Bret.
Right.
And I was nervous as hell. And the first spot we did together, it was in up in Canada. I think it was in Calgary of all places or something, or Winnipeg or somewhere. And I goofed up the spot and clotheslined on the nose right before WrestleMania, and I like busted his nose open.
Huh.
I didn't break his nose, but
Right.
it all cut open. And Bret just went underground and said, "Just get on me." Like I was always, I'm ready to get a good first impression of Bret Hart.
Right.
This is world champion here. My first house show, first match with them. you know?
Right.
I'm like, oh boy, I'm off to a good start. But Bret was great about it, and he had sense of humor about it. And he was, you know, he was brought up, like I said, old school, and he was totally cool about it. You know, he was fun to work with. I still love Bret to death. He's a great guy.
What are your memories of the Lex Express?
A lot of hard work, man. Ooh, I mean, sometimes 4 or 5 appearances in a day, from 3 morning radio shows to. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not complaining, but I'd get up at usually 4:30 every morning and do all the morning drive time radio shows
Right.
in person,
Right.
into stations, not call-ins like you do now. I mean, I'd go into the stations, and then I'd be on the noontime shows, and I do appearance at a mall. Then I'd be on the weatherman at 6 o'clock and try to go work out in at night. And I'm not complaining, but and travel to the next city all the same
by bus,
day.
no flying, yeah.
I did fly some.
So
Yeah.
was it- okay.
I did fly home maybe twice for a couple, just like 1 or 2 days all summer.
You were
So I had
stretched
a
out.
little daughter.
Right.
Time was just real little at the time. My son was older, but my daughter was like 1 or 2. So it was, she was. It was tough, away from my family like that. A lot of hard work.
It has been said that the Lex Express was such a disappointment that Vince changed his mind last minute about putting the belt on you. Is that true?
That's once again that would be inside information that I was not privy to.
Right.
The appearances all went well. There were 7,000 people. I went to a Toys R Us in Denver, and they were 3 times around the building. They'd bring ice and medics there to people. So the reaction to the tour was tremendous.
Right.
The buy rate apparently didn't go up much, and if Vince made judgment off that once again, it's his business. That's his prerogative. I don't take that personally.
So there was no tension ever between you and Vince because of that?
No, not at all.
What are your memories
Not,
of
not from my end.
Right.
Right.
I mean, he might have been upset, but I wasn't. I worked hard, did my best at it, and it is what it is, or it was what it was,
Right. What are your memories of Yokozuna when you slammed him on the ship?
Oh, it was fun.
Right.
It was a great response from the crowd, and people still talk about that. Because he is a big, heavy guy. I practiced it one time with him, and it's not a sure thing.
Right.
Right.
Slamming him. He was for a guy, once again, God rest his soul, for a guy that big and heavy, he'd help you as much as he could.
Right.
He was coordinated and stuff and agile for a guy like that. But he was a load to pick up, man.
Right. Low weight too.
And all his weights in his lower body, and
right.
he's hard to pick. He's hard to slam.
Is it true that Shawn Michaels once said something cocky about your punches, and then you had the altercation with him? Like, what exactly happened?
No. Sean's a great worker, and Sean said some things about me, and I said something about when I heard that. I said something about him, and that I don't remember anything. It's so stupid now and silly.
Do you remember what he said, or
no, not really.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be evasive at all. It's so silly that, and we made up in past history that, it was just. I think I hung out with Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and then I started traveling some with Davey Boy.
Right. And
Davey Boy, somewhere out of that, I don't know how or why, there was friction, and my sense of humor once again, I called them the Kliq because they'd sit Vince was off with their feet up on this thing, and the guys waiting to figure out whether they're going to keep a job there, feed their families. They'd all sit there for 3 hours joking around with Vince when a guy wanted to. Vince and my still work here, so I nicknamed them with Kliq.
Right.
And Sean heard that, and then he said about me. And
you're the actual guy who actually named him the Kliq?
Yeah, that was my saying, which turned out to be a good nickname for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way it turned out, they joke about it now too, because with me about it.
Right.
You give us our name, so there's nothing really. It's so silly now. It's not really. There's nothing big or worth even, coming to blows over anything like that. There was nothing like that intense. You know what I mean? Really wasn't.
What happened with the Bruise Brothers and Shawn? I know they roughed him up a little bit. I heard.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Memories of teaming with Davey Boy Smith. What was Davey Boy like?
He's a character. What a funny guy to travel with, and I mean, talk about a good sense of humor. I stayed with him and his family in England, and we were there one time and touring with the WWF, and at the time, and we drove in his car, and his mom and dad and his sister, his whole family stayed at his house, and just a super witty kind of river, kind of funny guy, man.
Right.
Great guy. Dave Boy, great, good-hearted guy too. If he's your friend, once he's your friend, he'd do anything for you. A great guy.
How different were things for you professionally and personally into your WWF career as compared to your WCW career?
I don't quite follow you.
Like, how different was your life as far as it was compared to being in WCW? How different?
Just travel was hard.
A lot of travel.
Yeah, we'd be gone like 17 days at a time, maybe home for 2 or 3. You actually wouldn't even unpack your bag. In WWF at the time,
Right.
you do TVs, then a 10-day Europe trip, come back to TVs, and then go home for a couple of days and go back on the road maybe for another 10.
Huh.
And it was
How'd you
a
do
lot of
that?
travel. Well, you just do it. It's your job,
What locker room did you like better? What locker room with all the guys did you get along better with?
Wouldn't be much.
Like the WWF locker room, were you like more friendly with the guys in WWF or back in the NWA days, or who'd you feel closer?
I say WCW locker room was a little tighter,
Right.
because we were kind of the underdogs. They were always the big monster,
Big
Vince McMahon, the Machine. So I think they had a little more camaraderie between the WCW wrestlers.
right.
In the locker room and stuff, and outside the locker room and stuff like that. So, but I don't mean that bad. There wasn't a bad atmosphere.
Right.
But WWF had more guys who had used the word Kliq, but guys went their own way with their own little groups.
Since you had such a close friendship with Sting, was there any shot of him trying to get him into WWF at the time when you were there? Or?
No. Sting was always his own man that way.
Right.
His own businessman. So
Did he have any
he
interest
never made
ever?
an overture towards me to
Right.
get in there, and I never talked to him about coming in there. We were business partners, only same gyms at the time and everything, but we never talked about him coming up there or me trying to get him in there or him wanting to get in there. He never brought it up.
Right.
To be honest with you.
We talked about the Kliq a little bit earlier on. How did things change with the slow rise of power to the Kliq? Do you think they really influenced Vince a lot as far as his thought process on who to push? We did an interview with Shane Douglas, and Shane said that those guys pretty much sabotaged his push and career in WWF at the time?
Oh, I don't know if anybody can really, if you're talented enough, I don't think anybody can really sabotage your career.
Right.
Guys who say that, I think, are.
Looking for scapegoat?
I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying if you have a talent and the crowd takes to you, the promoters are going to use you whether they like you personally or not.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't think anybody really sabotages somebody else's career. I mean, I think if a guy's talented, they're going to get over.
Right.
Either not a nice guy.
Right.
Whether anybody in the locker room likes him or not, they're going to get over. You know.
Well,
And
you
never know who that's going to be. But usually second time the guy walks out, you can tell. Crowd usually there's a buzz to the crowd when a guy walks out who has it.
Right.
And you can't put your finger on it. You know, the crowd just reacts to certain people. Some comes out of those $1 million and the crowd doesn't react, and some guys look like crap and people love them.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't know what it's a charisma /
X factor, what do they call
yeah,
that?
X factor. I don't know what it is, but yeah, most top guys have certain ingredients that the crowd takes to, whether it's your look or the way you work or the way you talk or a combination of all those ingredients that go together. You know,
Can't explain it.
and I don't think anybody can really sabotage somebody else's career. I think that's kind of an excuse. You know, if you don't think you did what you think you should do. You know.
Were you there when the Kliq actually called a strike and had Vince had to come to the house shows at all?
No, I wasn't there then.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Sunny? Sunny? What are your thoughts on her?
I know her very well. She got big there after I had gone back to
WCW.
Right.
Anything that stand out in WWF that you really enjoyed doing when you were there? Is there anything that you know?
Oh, lots of things, man. We first time we went to Israel. We went to Tel Aviv, and we were like the Beatles. And I remember stuff like that. There's unbelievable. In Innsbruck, we stayed in, and the travel was tough, but also some beautiful places I saw when I worked there. And so the travel was tough, but at the same time, it was, you know, you saw a lot of places and different kind of people, and so that's kind of a learning experience, and it's fun too. Right. So I mean, I have a lot of good memories from WWF. I have no bad sentiments or bad hatred or for anybody or anything there. You know, I like I said before, I don't mean to be redundant, but I work my job and I do my best, and you know, I try my best when I was there. You know, and I don't have any bad memories of that or the way Vince treated me or anything like that. You know.
So you always got along good with Vince throughout your relationship?
Yes, always. I had heard he was upset when I went to WCW.
Right.
Because WCW stipulation was that I do it unannounced, which
for Nitro,
which was really tough for me because that Suga taught me you always give a 2-week notice. You know.
Right.
But people don't know. I actually worked 6 months beyond having a contract with Vince, trying to work out a new deal with Vince. And we were talking and negotiating. There was no bad words, no hostility. And it just got to the point where I knew that the contract that we were discussing just wasn't going to happen. And WCW gave me the opportunity, but Eric Bischoff's stipulation was you got to be surprised. Now, they went against everything that I could possibly want to ever do in business. But it was a chance to get back in WCW, and you know, and I thought that WCW had a chance to really go on the upswing there. I wanted to be a part of it, and I regret that. I think I hurt Vince's feelings doing that. I regret that, and I've written him a letter and apologized to him for that because I'm not unprofessional,
right.
And just. It was just something that, you know, that most people put in my spot. You know what I mean? At the time, the decision-making process I had to make for my family and I feed my family, that was a stipulation. So you know, even though I didn't agree with it and want to do it that way, I did do it that way. So that I regret, and I apologize to him in writing. He has a letter from me. Apologizing to that. I did feel badly about that.
Did he respond to the letter?
No.
Okay. Did anybody else from the company respond to the letter, like Jim Ross or?
No.
I guess when you worked your last show for WWF was a house show, then you debuted in Minnesota, I believe, for it was the first Nitro, Wall of America show.
Right.
What are your memories of that? As far as the crowd reaction and what was your?
It was a good crowd reaction. I went back to WCW, so I come back home again. So it was good. You know.
How was Eric Bischoff? Because you never really got to meet him until that point. What are your thoughts on him?
Eric was Eric's Eric. You know, Eric can be cocky and arrogant and mean people, but he was there. But I mean, overall, Eric always treated me fairly with contracts, and when he's told me he'd renegotiate early because I was doing the job, he always did, and I have to respect him for that. You know what I mean? Eric's Eric, but I mean, business-wise, he was always business with me.
Right.
I have no complaints over there at all.
Were you much happier to be back in WCW again, or was it just business?
It's never just business. You know what I mean? I was such good friends with Sting and with guys. So I had friends back there that I had for a long time, and guys I'd broken into business with, kind of.
Right.
You know, with the Crockett's. So it was. You know, it's not just business. It was fun to get back there.
How did you get along initially with Hogan and Savage?
I always got along. From my end, I always thought we got along great. So, Hogan was always nothing but professional with me and a straight shooter with me. Always shot straight at me. So was Randy. So I never had any kind of differences there.
Thoughts on finally getting to work with Hogan? What was that like?
Oh, it was a privilege, of course. I mean, he was, before I got in the wrestling business, I didn't know, like I said, I wasn't real knowledgeable, but if you knew a couple names, it was Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, you know? So to be in the same ring with them, and it was a privilege and an honor. And I told him that, you know? So it was fun.
Did it ever bother you that you had to put him back over like a week or two later for the title? No.
Like I've already explained my approach to wrestling, and for him to put me over was huge.
Definitely.
How many guys could say Hulk Hogan put him over? You know?
Right.
So for him to agree to do that, it meant he had respect for me. So when you say, oh, you can take it away from me 7 or 10 days later, or 7 months or 7 years later, what does it matter? You know, I mean, it was still an honor to, he thought that much of me, you know. So no resentment there at all.
What are your memories of your matches with Mark Merrow?
I never wrestled him very many times.
Just maybe 1 or 2.
I only had maybe 1 or 2 matches with him, really, to be honest with you. So almost none.
When they did the angle with Brian Pillman and Kevin Sullivan, and then they worked the locker room, did it bother you at all, or was it just whatever?
Why you'll have to
when they
go a
did
little further.
It was with Brian Pillman and Kevin
Booker
Sullivan.
Man
They did
comment.
the gimmick in the ring with him, where he did the shoot comments on Kevin Sullivan, and they had it actually look like he was working in the locker room, or it made it look like a shoot.
And then Pillman went to ECW for a couple things and back. It was like he was trying to fool the boys. And
Guys, I never took it that way. I always thought it was work.
right,
So I never
right,
looked at it like an insult. I didn't was trying to work me.
right.
I would never thought it was a shoot. So
What was the locker room like when the boys actually finally realized that Chris Benoit kind of took Kevin Sullivan's wife?
it's always surprise, you know. I mean, you know, but I mean, I would say no one took his wife. I mean,
you know, yeah.
obviously there were problems in their relationship. There must have been, or else she'd still be with him. And so same with Chris Benoit and whoever his wife was with at the time. So you know, I mean, you're surprised, but at the same time, it's you know, it's you know, stuff in life happens, you know, and it's not always planned, and it's not always something that looks good or to other people, but you gotta live your own life, you know.
How did Eric Bischoff change with success?
By change, you mean?
His ego, did his ego get bigger when they started beating Vince in the ratings? And
I think I took it more with Eric. Eric could be a little cocky and arrogant, but at the same time, I think he took pride in the fact that he had taken over the ratings, and he you know, he was happy. That's not just for himself, for the guys that work there. So I would really take it that he was being an egomaniac or maniacal,
Right.
satanic, like wrestling is. I beat Vince and this and that. I think he was. I took it more that he was happy for. It'd make him more money, obviously, if the company did well, and he was happy the company was doing well. So it was a feather in his cap. So did he get a bigger ego? Maybe, but for good reason, I think.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the public Bischoff and Ric Flair feud? And do you think that Rick should have just accepted his role and stepped aside? Because I knew there was a lot of politics going on.
You're going into the inside stuff, and you have to give me a little more here.
Basically, there was a problem. They had the political problem. Where,
Remember, I'm not an internet guy or anything, so you got to give me a little more sometimes.
Okay. Basically, Bischoff wanted Flair to step aside and push younger guys and stuff like that, I believe. And Flair didn't want to, he wanted to stay on top. And there was a political struggle. Right.
Everybody thinks what she's saying top all the time.
Exactly.
Or how old they are. Right. So I never thought that there was anything wrong with Rick wanting to stay on top, and there was nothing wrong with Erich, for instance, wanting to push other guys. Obviously there always has to be some kind of evolution. I think a mix is good,
right?
But there has to be some mix, so that in their own way they're both right.
What are the differences between WCW when you came back to before you left? How has the company changed? When you first were in NWA and then it changed to WCW, how different was it this time around? Did it seem like there was...
When I went back
after Vince.
After Vince?
Right. Did the company change a lot?
I thought it was because we had Hogan and Randy Savage, some really big names from WWF, and I think it started to create some buzz, that maybe WWF isn't the only big game in town anymore. And I thought, we talked about all this money Hogan's making, his sweetheart deal. I thought, all power to him, If he can get that much money and it's good for the company, then good for him, and good for the company.
Was it a hard adjustment being not, the top babyface when Hogan and Savage were there?
For me?
For you at all?
Oh, no,
okay.
Not at all. I always, like I told you before, wherever role I'm supposed to play, whether it's second fiddle or first fiddle or, whatever it is. I mean, I'm getting paid to do my job. I'm going to do the best I can with what part I'm given. So I never had a problem with that. I never had ego about, I should be the best guy, or I should be the number one guy, or I should be this. I never thought that was even my decision.
How well did you get along with Hall and Nash?
I go along well with Scott and Kevin. I just had dinner with Kevin about a month ago when he came to Atlanta. Kevin and Jim worked out and we had went Japanese together. So I like Scott. Scott's just he's Scott, you know. But he's a good-hearted guy, man. I mean, he really is. He just some people have trouble sticking out their own way sometimes. But I mean, he's a really good guy. And he's a good-hearted guy. If he's your friend, he's a really good friend. So I have nothing but good thoughts about when I think of Scott Hall or Kevin Nash. And when we worked when they came in from WWF, we had some great matches, Sting and I, against him and Nash, and they were really good, and we all got along good, and so I have nothing but, and they upped the ante on contracts,
right?
And that was a good thing that led to me getting more money. So I have nothing but good stuff about that,
Was there a lot of politics going on at the time? Because there's stories going on that Hall and Nash would have Bischoff's ear, and then there was the Hogan faction.
I always heard that, but once again, I'm not being evasive at all or trying to be elusive or not insulting, but I'm always honest. I never.
You did your own thing too. You didn't.
Yeah, I never took part in those kind of things. But I didn't know whether Hall and Nash were meeting with Eric Bischoff secretly in his ear, or whether Hogan was trying to undermine them and was thought that, or they were jealous of him, and he was jealous of them, or any of that stuff. I heard those rumors like everybody did, but I mean, I wasn't privy to it from any of them. They never had a discussion with me on it.
Right.
For me, I always, my life experience, unless you hear it from the horse's mouth, I mean, you never really know.
From a business standpoint, did you think it was wise for WCW to try so hard for television ratings to put all the main, even dream matches on free TV compared to pay-per-view like it used to be? Do you think that was a mistake from a business standpoint?
Once again, I was never an office guy,
Right.
so it's hard for me to say, because obviously a lot of good decisions were made when WCW surged ahead and beat them in ratings, and some of the old school guys' attitudes are, we're doing too much for free on TV, but if you want good TV, you got to give them good matches. So it's kind of a, it's kind of a tough thing to make a judgment call on, So, and somebody has to make, well, I'm glad I didn't have to,
Right.
So I don't have any criticism of it,
Right.
What do you think that was? What do you think it was that destroyed WCW from the number one company to going out of business? Most people in WCW said they never really knew who was in charge. Is that true?
Oh, I think it was pretty readily apparent that Eric Bischoff was in charge.
Right.
I don't think that was ever really in doubt. I think that there was some confusion when Vince Russo and that group of writers came in,
Right.
of who was really in charge. Then Eric left for a while, and then they came back together,
Right.
and there was some confusion. But as far as blaming anybody, I mean, WCW had a great run, and Stone Cold, and then The Rock, people started getting over, and it was kind of cyclical, and they made a big run. And I take it their run was strong enough that I think TNT and TBS and the parent company AOL decided they didn't want wrestling anymore. I didn't think it was so much a failure as it was.
They just didn't want
once they fell behind the ratings, they didn't want to try to do another run. They were like, should we try to bring The Rock in here, or should we try, or Stone Cold, or sign them up for a bunch of money, and like we did with other guys, and try to make a big run, or what? I just took it as not so much a failure of the company as that I think AOL Time Warner just kind of decided that they didn't want wrestling, which is their prerogative.
Right.
I think it's sad.
Right.
They did, but I mean, at the same time, it's their prerogative. They own the company.
Right.
They have shareholders to answer to, and stock board meetings, and wrestling was losing money. So it was their decision.
At that point, since you were working for the competition of Vince McMahon at WCW, did you agree with the way WWF, the way they were changing the product with the sex and the changing the wrestling? Did you agree with that, or did you think it was bad for the business?
It's not my style,
Right.
but I can't say it was bad for the business.
Right.
Obviously, it wasn't.
Right.
Me personally, it's not my style.
Right.
That out front kind of sexuality stuff, because whether I choose a movie to go to, or I'm not into pornography or that kind of, that's not my style as a person. But I mean, do I think it was bad for the business? Obviously, it wasn't, because it drew. So, do I think it had to be in every segment? No.
Right.
But that once again, that's not my decision.
Thoughts on the rise of Bill Goldberg? What are your feelings on Bill?
Guys, Bill was stinging out of the car at Charlotte one time and asked Eric Bischoff to get a chance to get a job. And then he wasn't, the night before he signed with, he was assigned with WWF, and he called my house. I was on the road. And he talked to my ex-wife, and I hadn't checked into the hotel yet that night. She didn't know where I was staying yet.
Right.
And Bill had to make a decision like that day. And he talked to my ex-wife, and she explained some of the pluses and minuses about travel versus,
For your experiences.
yeah, my experiences. And Bill made a decision off. I'm not saying myself, my ex-wife, or a big influence in Bill Goldberg's career choice, but I think Bill decided that WCW was his choice, and obviously it was the right one. Because I was one of those guys I tell you about when the first time he walked out, I said, he's got it.
Yep.
when he walked out there, came out through those sparks, people reacted. And I knew he was going to be a big star.
Did he kind of come to you for advice because he was a football player, kind of like you, had a similar background?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work out at my gym before he when he played for the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, and I knew him a little bit. So I don't know about advice. I don't want to say I give Bill advice because Bill pretty much had a pretty good business since all along. You know, he's pretty. Hey, Bill always had good instincts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but we talked some and about the wrestling and Bill. I always got along well with Bill. I mean, gosh, I was. Bill's last match, I think, with WCW, he had me come up in the torture rack. I mean, you know, so I mean, Bill was business with me, and we always got along. You know, some people say he got a big head and this and that, but I thought he did great. He was successful. If he could afford his own plane and fly himself, I mean,
more power to him.
When people criticize the guy about if you could afford your own plane and not have to go through the airport and like everybody else, and, why are you mad at him? You know, because he's been successful and done well. You know, I never had any resentment on that.
Just to get off the subject a little bit, what do you think about Brock Lesnar being a wrestler, collegiate to WWF wrestler now in the football? Since you were in football,
tough transition, man. From what I know, I don't know his football background, all of it, but I heard he just played high school.
And I don't even think.
And
it was
I know
his senior year.
I know that high school football to going to University of Miami, a major program, and then transition in the caliber play from University of Miami, which is a top program, to the professional level. When you first go to pros, and you got guys eat you alive at first.
Right.
That's man. If he pulls that off,
And zero college.
He's the man.
Right.
I mean, that's tough. That's gonna be a tough transition.
Right.
I'm not saying he can't do it. I heard he's a great athlete, and he's an impressive looking athlete. I mean, but it's going to be tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard because a lot of it's not just your tenacity and mental toughness, and it's a lot of it's technique and leverage and stuff that you learn through coming up through high school at a major college and playing against and building your way up to the pros.
Right.
And
he's playing a line, isn't he? He's pretty light. He's light for his position.
That's a tough jump.
Right.
You know, a tough jump. But who knows? I mean, you know, he's an obviously great collegiate wrestler, and if anybody can do it,
Him.
I don't know him personally, but he looks like a great athlete, so maybe he can pull it off. I don't know.
Thoughts on Conan? Did you get along with K-Dog, Conan?
We travel a lot together, yeah. And Conan's kind of guy that he's fun to be around, likes to play the rap music and and stuff like that, and K-Dog and stuff. Nash and him and I actually travel a lot together. So, in spite of rumors that I've heard, which once again I don't even know how to get on that wrestling websites and stuff, but I mean that there's heaps in Conan and I. The only problem I had one time was with when my bicep got hurt. We talked about a spot about 10 times. The spot that I hurt my bicep on before we went out there. A transition from me shining him as the heel in the heat.
Right.
And it was a Luthez over the rope. And my only thing to him was, and I was fine with him. 30 seconds later, I found him. My only problem was that we were over it about 10 times in the back. You fell backwards instead of falling forward on your neck on the rope. I mean, were you not all there? Did you not sleep last night? I mean, just tell me. I mean,
Right.
But everybody makes mistakes, and we made up, and I was mad at him. So my body's kind of my business, So, I was upset that my bicep was torn. And about 2 minutes later, I realized why he mad at him. He didn't do it on purpose. Even if he didn't sleep that night or was out partying or whatever happened, in life stuff happens. So a couple minutes later, I was fine with it. So there's no, at least I'm not on my end. There's no deep-seated animosity or resentment towards Conan at all, and I like Conan. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun memories traveling with him. A lot of good times.
Did you see the potential back then in Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit?
Oh, I think everybody always saw potential in them. They're always great workers.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think the only debate on them was their size, whether the fans would buy their size or not. But now there's such a mix of different size guys that their size isn't a detriment anymore.
Right.
So now their work ethic and their workability is able to shine. But yeah, you're a good worker, but it's kind of small. You know,
Right.
that isn't an issue for them anymore. They're able to shine with their talent, and they're very talented. So I'm happy for them. I'm really happy for them.
What did you think when Scott Steiner walked out and cut the shoot promo on WCW on Nitro? Remember that? He went off on Flair, he called him an old man and stuff like that. He trashed the company.
I always took Scotty as on those promos and stuff. Scotty is so hard. The business means so much to him. I always took it that when he said stuff like that, he was just trying to get heat and get over as a heel and be Big Papa Pump. And I never took it kind of like, gosh, Scotty's being a jerk or,
Right.
you know, I'm still friends with this guy. I see him, we was at my gym every night. I see him all the time. And so I'm still good friends with Scott. And we're all together. He roomed with me. I mean, my gosh. I never took anything he said about WCW or Flair or stuff like as a personal affront or anything like that. You know, I thought it was just Scotty being Scotty. You know, he's kind of crotchety and
Right.
and moody. You know,
Right.
so I was like, "Yeah, boy, you know, be yourself. You know,
Right.
be yourself out there. You know."
Right.
So I thought he was just being himself.
How did the relationship between you and Elizabeth start to develop?
I think as in any other workplace, I think we knew each other for years before anything besides just hello in the hallway happened, and it just I always had a lot of respect for her in the business and what she represented as far as women in the business, and I thought she was, of course, very attractive. And other than that, there was never anything there, and it was just sort of a gradual evolution. You know, I was unhappy in my marriage years and years prior to that. So, you know, it's.
You're talking about Elizabeth. Was it tense between you and Randy at the time when you started, I guess, having a relationship with Elizabeth at all?
Randy wasn't really with the company anymore at that point. So there wasn't any tension that we had. And when Randy was around me, when he came back, worked to come together, he didn't show any tension at all.
Right.
I certainly had none towards him. So from my side, there was none.
Right.
You know, I certainly had none towards him, and he didn't indicate anything towards me. So as far as I know, none at all.
Right.
You know.
A lot of guys we've done interviews with say that Randy was really, at the time when he had a relationship with her, that was really overprotective of Elizabeth, and he would lock her in, you know, rooms and stuff like that, and was like really.
I had heard that. Yeah.
Right. So, all right. What are your thoughts on your short team as the team package with DDP?
I'm sorry, what's that now?
You did a tag team, I guess, with
DDP, Dallas Page.
yeah. Didn't they do a gimmick with you guys together as a tag team called Team Package?
No,
No.
No.
Okay.
never heard of it.
We'll edit that one out. All right. What were your thoughts on working with Shane Douglas after he made his remarks about you at times in ECW and interviews? Because he came in.
You know what? I never heard remarks he made about me in ECW. I'm total shoot, honesty. So, and working with him, if I'm told to work with him, and well, I win or he wins, or whoever's going over or not going over, that's not my decision. It's
Right.
who runs the company, who's calling the shots, and so I had no problem with Shane. Shane might have a problem with me, but I never had a problem with Shane. He's a good worker, and I never had a problem with him. Sometimes I think he's a bit of he's a bit of a whiner, as far as he thinks he should be this huge star who's been held back by some unknown force, but the unknown force is that X Factor we talked about, and Shane, I think, sometimes might understand that he just might not have that X Factor that The Rock or Stone Cold or something like that has, or Goldberg or somebody,
Right.
you know. And even if he looks good or works good or whatever it is, you might not have that X Factor, and you know, I think he's had a good career, and he should be happy with what he's done. So I had no animosity at all towards Shane at all. Whether he has some towards me, I wasn't even aware of any interviews he made. So
What happened when you and Elizabeth left WCW in 2000, right before your matches with Palumbo were scheduled? What was it that she refused to do?
That was, that's always was the weirdest thing. Elizabeth never refused to do anything. She's a sweetheart, and she never refused to do a thing. She tried to do everything they asked her to do,
Right.
including wrestle, but she thought she'd never do. She even tried that. So unless there's something happening in a room between Elizabeth and somebody else that I wasn't present and she never told me about,
Right.
as far as I know, for a shoot, dead ass, God's honest shoot, she never refused to do anything.
How did you and Bagwell get close?
This Sting actually introduced us,
Right.
and Sting goes, I know he looks kind of like a prima donna-ish, and he waxes his eyebrows and all this stuff, but he makes me. Sting goes, I don't know why, but he makes me laugh.
Right.
And I said, oh, come on, Bagwell, you gotta be kidding me. Was he a stripper or something? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Sting and him are so unlikely to be together that when I came back to WCW from WWF, they were rooming together.
Huh.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And when Sting started, and Marcus ended up eventually becoming such good friends that when Sting was now going on the road much, he was playing the scary guy
Right.
from the rafters every few weeks. Marcus ended up rooming with me, because WCW paid for my room.
Right.
So I got a double and shared a room with him and stuff. So we wouldn't have to blow his money on. It wasn't making so much money, so we wouldn't have to blow his money on a room.
Right. Right.
And we just he's a funny guy, man. He's an entertaining guy. He really is. He's a great storyteller, and he's a fun guy to be around.
Did Sting actually like that gimmick, the new gimmick, as far as him coming down from the ceilings?
I think he enjoyed it, yeah, especially the days off.
Right.
Because at that point, something with Sting happened where his and we're really good friends still to this day, and I love him to death. But it got to the point where I'd use an example. We went to a shopping mall one time who wanted to buy a pair of sunglasses, and people literally chased us out of the mall. There's some point Sting, there's a fine line between appreciating that people recognize you, know who you are, because that's why you made all that money and buy big houses and nice cars and stuff, because if they don't recognize you,
Right.
then you never made it, or else people were never into you.
Right.
And somewhere he got to the point where he became, like I said, a little bit reclusive, and so that new gimmick was like custom made for him, because he didn't enjoy hanging out in the locker room as much anymore, and he just he didn't like anybody. It wasn't that he didn't like wrestling. He was growing tired of it. He wanted to spend time at home with his family. He didn't want to travel anymore. And who can blame the guy? That's his decision. And as far as the fanfare goes, he'd rather not be recognized.
Right.
And that's part of what the pain thing helped him out a lot. I was like, God, step into my body, and I don't wear pain or anything.
Huh.
And I'm recognized as soon as I step out anywhere, because I talk and look, and I can't hide my physique. So when you're 6'4", half like 285 pounds, and the small waist, I won't say it at all, the area braggadocio weight.
Right.
Even if they don't know who you are, they go, he must be a football player.
He must
or
be somebody, right?
Yeah. So I mean, but Sting would rather go undetected. And he that paint thing was almost a good thing for him. So you used to be walking out of lobbies, hotels, some of those a lot of times stuff, and they didn't know it was Sting.
Right.
And he liked that. He liked the anonymity of not being recognized. Which I don't mean that in a bad way, because it means he doesn't crave
Attention.
the fan. Love he doesn't crave recognition and everybody knowing who he is and stuff. You know what I mean? So, but he got to the point where so that was a great gimmick for him. The scary guy coming out of the ceiling once a month, you know what I mean? So he loved it. I think he was home all the time.
Some people say that you and Buff kind of mocked the company losing so easily and so fast. I think it was the Greed pay-per-view. What are your comments on that?
You know that actually at the what was it now?
I think it was the Greed pay-per-view. I forgot.
I'm not sure.
Maybe
Who were wrestling?
Palumbo and O'Hara.
You know how things get. It's so funny how things get twisted completely around. I've never refused to do a job. I've done exactly the way that they've asked me to do it. I've never gone in the ring and pulled something on a promoter or a booker and said, okay, if you want to put this guy over, I'm going to do it in 2 seconds and we look fake.
Right.
They actually wanted Marcus in that match to get beat by himself and me fighting outside the ring in about 45 seconds or 30 seconds.
Right.
And I said, and I volunteered, being a professional I am, if you really want to get these guys over that strong, I go, beat me too. I didn't care whether it was 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 45 seconds, or 10 seconds. I mean, I would have done whatever they asked me to do.
Right.
But they wanted Marcus to get beat, as from what I was told, in about 30 seconds. So, and my philosophy was being a professional was like, beat me too. I'd have the other guy, even though it doesn't count, because
Right.
you know, when you beat the legal guy in the ring, I go, beat me too. And it wasn't a sarcastic, it wasn't mocking the company. I thought I was being professional and giving something back
Right.
to young guys. If they want to push it, or you want to push these guys, let's push them. So there was no sarcasm or mockery from our veteran. Marcus got a bad rap, and I'd heard rumors about that. But there was no bad intentions, no sarcasm, no nothing. It was being professional, but yet we got hammered for it.
Right.
You're like, how can you be nicer and more cooperative?
Right.
And you get criticized for it. It's weird how things get on the internet get like so twisted from reality of what actually happened, from what happened in the back room to what comes out on an internet site or something that people tell you. You're like,
I know.
where'd they get that from? That's not even in the realm of what happened. You know what I mean? It wasn't even discussed, but it comes out as the truth. You know,
It's he said, she said.
and it catches like a life of its own. You know.
What did you think about Bagwell's mom coming in and like putting the straps on Bagwell's mom, and then bringing in people like David Arquette and like non-wrestlers?
I love Judy Bagwell to death, so I didn't mind Judy being on TV and whatever she wants to do. I love Judy. I know Judy; she'll cuss you out too. But she's a straight shooter, and I love Judy Bagwell to death. So the Arquettes and people like that. I take it more that, you know, obviously he didn't need wrestling, so I always looked at when Rodman's or any of these guys come in and they make more money in one match than a lot of guys are making a year. So when guys were angry, I'd be like, hey, they don't need wrestling. They're wrestling fans, which is good for wrestling.
Right.
And if WCW want to pay a bunch of money to come in to be a non-wrestler and wrestle, well, and they're wrestling fans and they want to do it, you know, all power to them.
Right.
My hat's off to them. Hey, you know, have fun.
Do you think that was?
So I had no resentment towards that at all myself.
Even from your background with Matsuda and everything and the believability, and then you have Hogan like selling for Jay Leno. Do you think that was, or
you know,
it's just for the buy rate?
From the business aspect, from Hiro's aspect, yeah, I see where that's
Right.
kind of, oh boy. But from the aspect of mainstream, trying to take wrestling as mainstream as possible to the biggest audience possible, Hogan's being in business. So, being there with Jay Leno and selling for him. Right. So, I mean, I see the point of, oh, what's Jay Leno doing beating Hogan up? But I mean, at the same point, it's good that Jay Leno's in the wrestling ring. I didn't think it was a bad thing. You know, it's not my other people have other opinions, but I didn't think it was bad.
Right.
Going back to Sting, since you're so close to him, he did that when he was doing the coming from the ceiling and everything. After what happened with Owen Hart and everything, did he ever express anything to you like wow, that could have been me, or did
you know, he said he'd never do it again.
Right.
Then he did it again.
Right.
Well, after that, Owen. So I traveled with Owen.
Right.
David Wood. we stayed together in the car and at the same hotel. So, great guy too, and real tragedy. But yeah, Sting had a lot of reservations about that. What happened to Owen, and but Sting's I guess, but some of he's a professional and they want him to do it, so he did it.
Right.
But I definitely think he had reservations about doing it, and I think he was a little scared.
Right.
And can you blame him when something like that happened to somebody else?
Right.
So I don't blame him. So
Right.
yeah, he had reservations about
Right.
doing it again. He did do it again. So I compliment him on it. But yeah, he was nervous and they said he wasn't going to do it again, but he did.
Right.
When were you told that WCW was sold to Vince?
I heard the rumor like a day before.
Right.
That was totally out of the blue. That was one of the best kept secrets ever, as far as something being a business transaction being made. Once again, my hat's off to Vince. I mean, he pulled it off. All of a sudden, WWF said WCW's TV,
Right.
last TV show. You're like, oh my gosh.
What are your memories of that night?
Oh, all I did was interview, and I was on my home back to Atlanta before the show ever started. I did a pre-taped interview,
Wow.
so I didn't really have anything bad, negative, or positive to say what about memory-wise of it. I was a little sad that WCW wasn't going to be a company anymore because I think it's good to have competing companies, but to the victor goes the spoils, and Vince won, so
Right.
he took over.
What do you think when you heard Vince make that derogatory remark about you on TV?
You know what? I don't. You'll have to tell me about what he said, because
It was that night when they were. He was asking the fans who they would like for him to bring into WWF or WWE at the time, and he mentioned your name, and I think he made a remark like, you'll never see Lex Luger in this company or something like that.
oh, I didn't take it either way, because I didn't know whether he was being serious or whether he was working, or so I didn't really take it as a. Once again, professionally, he was kind of strutting around. I took over WCW and was mentioning a bunch of names. So to me, I didn't take it personal at all. That I control these guys' destiny. If I don't ever wrestle again, they won't. And I didn't take it that way. If he meant it that way, then he's the only guy in North America right now.
Right.
So pretty much. So, I mean, I didn't take it that way. I didn't take it personally or that he insulted me at all.
What did you expect after the sale? Did you think you'd have a job there? Or?
I didn't have any expectations whatsoever, to be honest with you. I didn't know whether they were going to try to keep WCW against WWF, whether they're going to have competing belts, whether they're going to completely dissolve and dismantle WCW. So I really didn't have any expectation of what was going to happen. I knew I was getting paid by AOL Time Warner for about another year and a half. I know that, but that's the only certainty that I had.
Right.
Other than that, I had no idea whether I'd be working for him or not working for him.
Did anybody ever call you from the company, Jim Ross or anybody, to come in? Or
I've had discussions with them before,
right,
but I haven't gone in there. But it's nothing. Part of the thing is I'm in some legal problems currently, so. Until I clear those up, really, I wouldn't blame a major company for not wanting to put a lot of time and TV into me until I clear those things up.
where do you think Vince went wrong with his booking of the WCW guys after the sale? A lot of people say that Vince didn't use the guys correctly, and a lot of other people are saying, well, he couldn't have because Vince always, wanted WWF to look stronger than WCW, and if he brought in a lot of the WCW guys and had them face the WWF guys, he'd always have to put the WWF guys over the WCW guys, just as an ego type thing.
If it's my company, I wouldn't blame him. I don't know whether I don't think Benoit's and guys are getting, Guerrero's are getting good pushes there and everything now, so I don't think he personalized that you're a WCW guy and you'll never be successful here. I know some WCW guys have that I've heard have said that, but I don't think Vince McMahon made a conscious choice that I'm going to bear every WCW guy to make my guys look good.
Right.
I just think he picked a talent that got over when they went in there, and the ones that didn't.
Do you feel he should have went after more of the top guys like Goldberg right away instead of, I think the first couple guys you brought in were O'Hara and Palumbo and Bagwell, I think.
Booker T.
Do you think you should have went and bought up the contracts and had you come in with Sting and Goldberg right away?
What do you think that's a reason
Well,
he didn't?
I would have loved if he did, but I mean,
Right.
but that was his decision.
Right.
Once again, he was a winner, So I would have liked if he'd done that, but I mean, it's his decision certainly not to, and bringing other guys. So that's his choice,
Did you turn down a lot of indie promoters at that time?
Because I'm once again, and I don't want to be done. I'm not like a computer guy, internet guy.
No, but
I don't. All my numbers are always private. My phone numbers, as you probably know.
Right.
No one really had an opportunity to contact me. So until just this past month when I did a few things here with Dennis, I really, there really wouldn't be a way to reach me, to be honest with you.
Right.
So, no, I haven't turned out a bunch of independent promoters because I haven't talked to them.
What is your favorite memory of Elizabeth?
Oh, God. There's a million,
Because I want to start talking about her now.
A lot of good memories.
What do you remember about that day? What really happened? Because so far we've only heard one side of the story. I'd like to hear.
Well, I respect her family. I've never discussed it because they want anything medical or anything else to remain private. So I respect her family's wishes on that.
Right.
All I know is she was fine 1 second, the next second I was calling 911. It was just mind-boggling. I mean, she was standing right next to me talking to me. The microwave. I was heating up mashed potatoes and meatloaf in the microwave for both of us. We were watching a movie. I was gone almost that whole day. But my son's basketball tournaments, AU tournaments, and I just got home a little while before that. I was gone the whole day, and she was standing next to me 1 minute, and the next minute I thought she was asleep on the couch, and I was calling 911.
Right.
So.
A lot of people, I don't want you to get mad at me for saying, a lot of people said that she could have been like pills or something like that.
No, there's actually, I can't say this, and God's honest truth, there was no element of any kind of like drugs in her system as far as illegal drugs. Let me put it that way.
Right. What about like prescriptions like somas or anything like that?
No, it was alcohol.
Okay.
As far as I know, no, her family's been very private even with me,
Right.
and that's their choice.
Right.
But as far as I know, it was.
Is that what the autopsy said? I don't even remember what the autopsy said.
I've never seen it.
Right.
And her family, I guess, asked for that to be held private, and I think it has been. I don't know. But once again, I'm not an internet guy. I don't know. He's probably, I don't know what's forged, what's real. We're hearing about George Bush right now with documents that weren't real about his army guards. So
Right.
what's out there about me or what I've been charged with or what Liz may have died of, I have no idea whether that's true or false. Her family's very private. She was a private person. I'm a private person, and I respect that. And her family wanted everything to remain private. That's why I never spoke out. I never tried to defend myself, not defend myself, say anything, because I respect her memory, because I loved her very much and her family.
What did you go through the next 24 hours with all of that as far as?
Oh, it was rough, man, because they tore my house apart and did stuff that I felt on 99.999% of 911 calls would have never been done if it wasn't Lex Luger.
Right.
So instead of being able to mourn someone I loved very much, it was I was sitting in jail cell, so it was rough.
How did you handle that mentally?
Like I said, you got to get through what you get through, man.
Right.
I got 2 kids to support, and you got to try to move on. Got to take the good with the bad.
Did they let you out within 24 hours, or did you have to
Yeah.
stay in there? Did a lot of your peers? You talked earlier about Sting. You said he helped you through a lot of it. Did a lot of other guys come forward? And you
Yeah,
got out of your
let's quit for you guys.
Vince McMahon. They did a
Once again, I'm a private person, so I didn't talk to too many guys.
right.
I respected her family, and I'm a very private person, so I didn't really talk about it much.
What's the latest with the charges and all? Is it still ongoing?
It's about to come to an end.
You think it's going to go your way, or you don't know?
I certainly think it should. My gosh, I mean,
What are they charging with you? Just, distribution?
and you know what? I don't even know what.
Right.
If they find 3 or something, it's like one felony charge. So I never even looked over what they said they found.
Right.
So, and my place was left, the door was left wide open. So I mean, to be technical, for a search warrant game, somebody could come in there and place stuff in my house. I'm not trying to be
Right.
a wise guy or anything, but the whole thing is so bogus that and ridiculous. I mean, it was just a total invasion of my privacy, and for no reason other than I think of who I was. And I think that if that situation happened in any other home, and it wasn't me in Cobb County, that never would have happened. So, I'm not complaining about it, not lying about it. I'm going through it and what I got to go through, and nothing's ever a sure thing, but I certainly think things will be cleared up, and I'll be vindicated as far as,
Right.
not being guilty of any criminal offenses.
Now, before that tragic day was
I hope.
Elizabeth always acting normal, or did you ever see any problems with, like, partying or whatever?
She partied. She drank some and partied a little bit, like not anything out of the ordinary in our profession
Right.
or in the entertainment industry. Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't want to do any invasion. Once again, a huge invasion of family or her privacy.
Right.
But I mean, she was not over the top. That's why it was so shocking.
Do you think it was,
There was nothing she did that was like totally over the top.
right? Do you think it was the lifestyle of being on the road all the time? Because she was never really taking bumps and stuff like that. Or do you just think it was being around the business?
Or do you think she's getting a bad rap because of all the drug deaths in wrestling with all the wrestlers over the last 7 years? You know how they make a big deal about that now in the newspaper. Who's that one guy that's always writing against Vince McMahon in the paper?
Oh, Munchkin.
Yeah, how he has this thing now in the newspaper. They had a thing in USA Today about all the wrestlers that have died. I guess like the Rude, Louis Piccoli, and all that.
Yeah, and
Do you think she's
we don't hear about when all the IBM employees or people who die from heart attacks and
Right.
think she's
and
unfairly put in
fatty
there?
diets. So yeah, I think it's very unfair.
Right.
If we did a portrait of any major company, I'm sure.
Like Wall Street guys.
Yeah,
That whole,
those guys die in parties and stuff too.
Right.
But they're not on TV, so you don't hear about it.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think it's. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that it's not a problem, but in any way.
Looking back, did you think there was a problem there, or did you just think it was like that?
If I thought there was any kind of problem that would be in any way fatal, my gosh, no, that totally, absolutely blindsided me.
Did that change your lifestyle at all since that incident, or?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, it has to.
Do you think Vince crossed the line with the betrayal of your role in her death on Confidential?
I don't know anything about it.
Did you know about?
My lawyer had asked me never to comment on anything about it,
Right.
and I never watched any TV on it. I was too broke up about it, so I didn't watch or read stuff. So
They painted you in a bad light, and they basically played your 911 call, but like mocking way. It wasn't.
I'm sure they may have. I mean, I don't know.
Do you know why Vince would do that? Why he holds a gripe? And
No, you'd have to ask him that. I don't know.
right.
I didn't even know he did that. So you're telling me this is for the first time. I don't know.
Were you ever contacted by anybody in the WWE to comment on that piece at all that they did?
Yeah, I think they called my gym one time and wanted me to comment on an article in the magazine about Elizabeth and wanted my input. And it was her family. I respect her family. I never returned the call because I didn't think it was appropriate at all for me to comment.
What are your actual views on like painkillers and steroids and all in the business? Because it's out there and stuff.
Oh well, it's unfortunate. Just like there's fraud on Wall Street and Enrons and stuff. There's in the entertainment business with young people with fast lifestyles who travel a lot. Unfortunately, there's a lot of times a higher instance of drug usage and we're in. When you talk about steroids, you get, whether it's football players or track and field guys, and then they come up with ones that can't be detected now. What we're hearing, and I mean, it's every time it seems like they're trying to stop it. The people who know how to stop it seem to like the same guys come up with something that's like radar detectors and radar guns. You know, it seems like they come up with something else.
Right.
It can't be detected. So I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, I think all athletes and especially I have great genetics. I mean, I wish that everybody was on a level playing field. I'll put myself against anybody that way. But I think that I wasn't some 180-pound high school kid who turned into a 280-pound wrestler, jacked up on the juice. I was 250 pounds in high school before I ever knew what a Diana ball was. Right. So I mean, and benching almost 500 pounds. So I wasn't some little guy who manufactured himself into a big guy. Yeah, I've taken anabolic steroids, but never any quantity or number of compared. Even some guys were even referees in the wrestling business. To be honest with you, amazingly enough.
Right.
I mean, I always had blood tests and supervised and monitored my blood work and my liver and by doctors, and there's no good way to take it. I think most guys, I'll wish that there wasn't any of it so that everything would be level. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it isn't level. So I think there's always going to be, on an anabolic, I think there's always going to be some form of some guy trying to get an edge. Unfortunately.
Do you think it's a necessity in this business that, to be pushed, then you got to have a look that you have to go and
No, I don't think it's a necessity. Some guys that have been big stars in our business have worst shirts and have the worst bodies in the world. So no, it's not a necessity. I think some of the guys who portray themselves with it's important for a guy such as myself, whose gimmick, part of my gimmick was my body,
right,
to look good. So I think there's a certain, to be totally honest, there's always going to be a higher propensity for the guys with the bodies to want to take something to enhance even more than the guy who wrestles with a shirt, some kind of shirt on and stuff, because it doesn't matter if they go to McDonald's and what they do, diet and train and put in the hours in the gym and all. There's a lot of healthy stuff you do too, but I just want to talk about that anabolic steroids.
Right.
I wouldn't, like I said, I wasn't some manufactured 285-pound guy. I was 245, 50 pounds in high school, before I ever touched steroids. So my dosages and my levels and amounts and quantities were, not to take any of it's a good thing, but it's actually, compared to a lot of guys, quite light.
Right.
Quite low quantity.
I remember seeing when you first came into NWA, the fans, they would heckle you and stuff like that. Did it ever bother you when they would make steroid chants at you or something like that?
Nah, because I always had the attitude in the business, like when it's like this baseball thing just happened, like the player threw a chair up, and when the fans buy a ticket,
right?
I was in the Bahamas my first year. I was in Florida wrestling. They throw cups of urine on you.
Huh.
I mean, we went into the ring back, and you can't go into stands after them. They got rocks and bottles there. They call it rocks and bottles, man. For you tonight, if you're a bad guy there, rocks and bottles for you tonight, man. They literally throw rocks and bottles at you. So, I mean, compared to somebody doing a steroid chant or something, it didn't bother me.
Okay.
It bothers you. The only way it bothers you is that, you always been an athlete, and you always be at a level above 99% of non-other guys, whether you ever took a steroid or not. So in a way, it's like they're taking it away from your hard work in the gym and success that you have by saying, "Oh, it's because you take steroids." When a lot of it's not, more times not genetics and nutrition and how you train than it is what steroids you take. Because you're not going to make, some little Barney Fife guy into Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
I mean, I don't care how many steroids it takes. It's not going to happen. But that's not that bad thing. Everybody's whoever they are. I think everybody can be as fit as they can be. And they're all going to look different. So I don't look down on somebody else who's not like muscled up or built up, but at the same time, don't look down on me and heap me in as he's just a steroid abuser or something because I am built. So and that way it's a little hurtful, I think, because they try to demean all the other hard work and efforts you put in by saying, they're trying to take away from Bonds right now. No, I'm not trying to split Barry Bonds. So I'll just as an example.
Right.
They're trying to take away from the 7 home runs because they say, "Oh, he's a cheater. He takes steroids. Look at him, because he's muscular."
Right.
I think he's working really hard in the weight room.
Right.
And whether or not he ever took steroids, I don't think he's ever been a heavy steroid user. And he can hit a baseball, man. Got a short, compact swing. You can't take it away from him. He's a gifted athlete. But they all want to do the thing with him now. Oh, steroids and all. If he breaks Babe Ruth and then
Right.
Hank Aaron's record, it's not really legitimate. And I mean,
It's a different game back then.
Bonds operate in today's game. What today's players do or don't do,
Do you think that Vince's steroid policy is serious, or do you think it's a joke and it's just there just to say, all right, we have it?
I haven't been in contact with that company so long. I don't even know if they have a policy, do they?
I think they do. They do testing on that, periodic basis. So, would you ever go back to work for Vince after everything he's kind of done publicly to embarrass you?
So you're telling me stuff about you said or done about me that I've never known about. Wow. So,
knowing it now, I mean, would you go back?
Would you go back?
I've learned, and this isn't being wishy-washy or evasive. I just learned in life so many shocking things can happen. Never say never. You know what I mean? Never. For me to sit here now, no, I would never go back to work for Vince McMahon, or am I sit here and say, "Oh, I want a job from him"? No. But could I say I would never ever work for him or in any capacity? I never say never. I don't anticipate it, but never say never.
Right. After Elizabeth's death, how low were you personally during this period? And
Very low.
How did you get through it?
You just gotta baby steps, man.
Good. Sorry.
Just, baby steps. Crawl before you walk. You walk before you can take little steps, and so you can, try to get back on your feet.
Right.
You just take it a day at a time. It's basically how you have to do it. But it's at least the way I try to handle it,
What led you to coming in NWA TNA? Jarrett's group. What led you?
Oh, Sting called me.
Was
It said it'd be fun. He flew to Atlanta and wanted me to do a tag match with him. So I said sure. And that's all there really was to it.
There's a rumor, I don't know how true it is, that when you got to the locker room, you pretty much laughed at all the talents at the guys that you weren't familiar with.
Did I what?
You laughed at some of the guys that were in the locker room because of
Laughed at them. What do you mean?
like because of their size or something like
They're
that.
all
Because they're
Real
small guys.
Yeah,
That's the internet.
That's stuff that I wouldn't know anything about. Things have been said about me that
Right.
that I'm as straightforward, sincere guy as you ever meet, and I've heard people say stuff that I've said that are so ridiculous and so ludicrous that it's unimaginable. And it's been attributed to me. It comes out as I've heard on the internet or on rag sheets or whatever as a fact that it happened. So I died of a drug overdose one time in the Bahamas of a combination cocaine steroid overdose. It was in the Washington Post.
Wow.
Really?
But I think that was back in '89. I'm like, how do you die of a steroid / cocaine overdose? Was it like Scarface in my face? I never done coke anyways.
Right.
I can't stand the stuff. And when I died face down a heap of cocaine with like 80 syringes sticking out of my butt. I mean, what's up about that? I mean, so I've heard some ridiculous things said about me. Even in legitimate newspapers printed that weren't even fact. People called home to my ex-wife when I was married to her and said, "We heard your husband died on the road of an overdose." I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, where do people get this stuff from?
Right.
It's like people on a much smaller scale, wrestling, but in celebrities and Hollywood, they say, "Where do these magazines? Where do they get this stuff
Enquirer,
from?
the National Enquirer.
Where do they even think this stuff up at? Let alone it be true."
Right.
But it comes out basically as a fact. How do you defend yourself? What do you do?
Right.
I mean, I didn't see.
You have no defense.
I didn't see the match with Sting that won it ended with Jarrett's company. How was the crowd reaction to you? Good.
Very good. Yeah.
There was also rumors that you were skeptical of putting AJ Styles over, but you pretty much already said that.
Oh, that's totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't have any skepticism at all.
Was there any?
And I didn't put him over.
Right. Were you supposed ever to tag with Abyss? Was there any plans for you to tag with Abyss there, maybe and face AJ and Hogan at one time? Because I know.
No, I never heard that.
Okay.
That's something. Once again, rumors that internet or whatever. I don't know anything about.
Who are some of your favorite opponents and your least favorite opponents?
Gosh, man. Not particular guys. I enjoy guys that like to have fun in the ring and work hard at the same time.
Right.
Like Sting did and Steamboat and Flair, and I really enjoyed. There's no one I hated working with. I like working with Hansen because he's Hansen, but he wasn't like personalizing it against me. He's just being Stan Hansen,
Right.
So did I Joe worked with Stan Hansen more than Ric Flair or Sting or somebody? No, definitely not. But I don't take away from him as a worker, as what kind of star he is. Just his style wasn't fun. For me, But that's. I don't really have like a list of unfavorites or anything like that. You know what I mean? I really don't.
Did you ever work Japan?
Yeah.
Did you like it over there?
Yeah, the crowd's different. They explode a brief applause and they're quiet again.
Yeah.
Right.
Then they erupt for a high spot, then they're quiet again like this. They're totally different. Our crowds are much more raucous and just a steady drone of entertainment factor.
Right.
And our audience is about football or basketball, or there's a little buzz in the building. Japan people are different. They erupt and then they're stone quiet.
Right.
It takes some getting used to.
Right.
Some critics really don't give you much credit as a worker. How do you respond to those people that say Lex Luger is a horrible worker?
Well, I joke about it, but I'm half serious. If I was as bad a worker as I said it was, now it makes me the best worker of all because I've made tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
Being a horrible worker, so boy, what a worker I must be, huh?
Any good rib stories that stand out?
Oh, boy. Dave Boy used to do a lot of ribs, but I wasn't big on ribs because I didn't want to get ribbed back. Right. So there wasn't, big ribs I pulled on anybody, or I know of that people pulled on me, really. You know what I mean?
What about road stories? Anything that stands out for
road stories?
Yeah, like traveling on the road. Anything fun happen on the road ever?
Oh gosh, nothing
that you talk about.
Had lots of fun, a lot of great bars and.
What's your favorite memory so far in the business?
Favorite memories?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think the sense of achievement of being involved in the wrestling business and not knowing anybody and being able to rise to the level that I did I feel fortunate and blessed, and also I take great pride in that. So never had to really kiss anybody's ass to get there. You know what I mean? So obviously somebody thought I was of some value. So I take pride in that, So probably just my level of achievement and not really knowing anybody in the business and getting it totally on my own, and reaching the level that I achieved it's very satisfying.
How do you think your life would have changed if the USFL was successful?
By that you mean?
You think you ever would have gotten into wrestling if your football career was longer? If it's
Well,
football,
I could try to still play football. I decided to get into wrestling.
Right.
I mean, so that's not really legitimate. You know what I'm saying?
right.
But maybe if there's a legitimate question is that it was the impetus for me to look at wrestling
Mhm.
that the USFL just folded because I lived in Tampa there at
Right.
the time when World Championship Wrestling was based out of there. But that was the coincidence. So yeah, that was. But if the USFL continued to operate,
Right.
would that have affected where I got into wrestling? I don't think so. I don't think football is a factor other than helping me look the part.
Mhm.
Having the size and athleticism and stuff that you don't make a pro football team for being a bad athlete. So that part of it helps. But I mean, the USFL thing, I don't really get that. No,
Do you still watch or keep up with the business at all?
not much. To be honest with you.
What's in your future?
As you probably already can tell. But I don't do it consciously, and I don't dislike the business or say, "Oh, it's all lousy now." I don't like. I think a lot of the guys are great. I see on talent. So the guys were wrestling when I was wrestling, and there's some new guys I think that I've seen, but I don't watch it a lot, and I don't like buy the pay-per-views and stuff. But I don't do that because I just like the business though. I still like the business. Obviously, they did a lot for me, and I'm appreciative of it.
Are you still surprised that Ric Flair is still being pushed hard in 2004?
No, never. Singer used to joke that they wheel him out in a wheelchair with the crackly woo, and it may come true. No, it doesn't surprise me at all.
What is in your future?
What's in my future? I want to be involved in I'm obviously a major fitness center here in Atlanta, and I want to be involved in the fitness nutrition industry, and maybe be the next Atkins guy. Who knows? I'm joking, but I mean, I want to be involved in that field, because it interests me, and I have a lot of interest in that field. So that's where I see my main future in, is the nutrition probably, and exercise, stuff like that, working out.
What is the biggest misconception about Lex Luger?
That he's cocky and arrogant, like I said before. And when I'm just a quiet guy who doesn't say much around interviewing people until I get to know somebody. And then if they think you're Lex Luger, there's a preconceived notion that, he's Lex Luger, so he's because he's quiet, he's arrogant, or he thinks he's better than me, when that's the furthest thing from the truth. I'm actually the exact opposite. It's the biggest probably misconception people have of me. And people have got to know me that have heard that, ended up traveling and said the same, God, I heard you were the biggest asshole. And I go, God, you're not, and then they say you're not anything like that.
Right.
So, but once again, I can only control what I can control,
Who, in your opinion, are some of the most underrated and overrated workers that you have worked with or watched?
Oh gosh, I'm not trying to be evasive. I've worked with some really talented guys. Most of the guys that are top workers have something about them. I've always been lucky enough to work with top guys pretty much the whole time.
Right.
Most of them either have some kind of talent, whether it's interviewing and work style, or a combination thereof, and so I never looked at it in the sense of guys overrated or underrated. I never looked at the guy that way. Who I worked with.
Is there anyone you have never worked with that you wish you had?
Anybody that I said again now?
Is there anybody that you haven't worked with yet that you wish you could have worked with him?
Sure, lots of guys. The Rock or something like that, or there's lots of guys I see that are stars of this now, and that I would like to, or would like to work with. So yeah, just plenty of guys.
How do you
Definitely.
think the business has changed over the last 15 years? And do you think it's good that it's changed, or do you think it's bad?
I don't think it's changed for better or for worse. I think it's different, because like everything else, the entertainment industry we talked about now, from national enquirers to the internet to everything's instant now. Everything's immediate. Whereas there used to be more mystery to wrestling, more how did they do it, and now it's it's been written about and interneted about so much. It's kind of, it's changed, but I don't think it makes it worse. Just because more out in the open doesn't make it worse. I think people want to watch it to watch it and they're entertained for what it is. It's wrestling. Yeah, they talk about it in the back, but they still enjoy watching it and seeing a good match. So I don't think it's changed for better or for worse, really.
How do you want the legacy of Lex Luger to be remembered?
Oh boy, I want to live a lot longer than right now. I'm in my 40s, so
Right.
I don't.
It's not over.
I don't think about a legacy right now.
Right.
No, I don't want to. I think that's bad luck, man. So I don't think about any type of legacy. Plus, legacy has kind of a snobby connotation to me. To be quite honest with you, I don't think of anything I do as a legacy.
Right. Do you think there comes a point when someone who has made such a good living off the business should give back to the business by putting younger guys over or teaching them?
Do I think they should give back? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
And what are the biggest differences between yourself, Lex Luger, and Larry Fallon? Full. Sorry.
That's okay. Lex Luger he's another person. I mean, that's just somebody that just because I look the way I look on TV and talk the way I talk on TV in person, that doesn't mean that when I'm being a heel or something or whatever that's Larry Full. I mean, that's somebody I'm portraying. So that's not. If I'm asked to be cocky, I'm going to talk cocky, but that's not Larry Full.
Right.
Do you have what message do you have for your fans out there?
I appreciate every last one of them that support me through the years and stuck by me, and those who have or haven't. I mean, they all bought tickets, and I used to say when you go to Philly or some of the really rough towns, when you're a good guy and they really get on you and stuff, I said. But I always thought that, boy, they're in front all the time buying tickets, spending money. So I've always appreciated their support and that they enjoy going to the matches and enjoy watching you do what you do. So just thanks for because really, I think the fans have always decided who the stars are. The promoters get to promote and push certain guys, but if the guy's not meant to be a star, he might be kind of a star. But I think the crowd and the buzz and the fans are always so. Have achieved a certain level of sense of business. You have to appreciate the fans. I think that they, not to be corny, they really do choose who the stars are.
Right.
They do make it. They make you a star.
Will the wrestling world see Lex Luger again?
Oh, I don't know, man. I tell you, I've been through the last couple of years. I pretty much take a day at a time. I really do. It's one way I've been able to get through it. I could be wrestling on WWE next week, or I could be never wrestle again. I mean, that's how much some things can alter your life. You don't take any day for granted, and you take life on the short term. I don't think these abstract, long term things, or think about any kind of legacies like you were talking about. So I don't look at it that way. I was looking at myself as a regular guy trying to get through the next day, man.
Right. Before we close, any regrets looking back on your career?
No, I don't have any regrets because I just did a lot of good things, but I made mistakes. Sometimes I may have said the wrong thing, like we all do in life. And whether a wrestler or a football player or a businessman or whatever you are, so I don't have any regrets. There's nothing, you do what you do, and in the future, and you can't dwell on what's happened in the past if you didn't let what happened, because it's you because you can't change it, so keep on moving along.
I guess in closing, we want to thank you for being here today.
Thanks, guys.
It was a great interview.